This was their domain. As the goblin assassin emerged, it immediately entered a state of stealth, cautiously probing its surroundings, while the archer stood guard beside Lu Yu, attentively scanning the overhead and surrounding rock walls to thwart any potential ambush from the goblin assassin. Unfortunately, the previous map had shattered upon exiting the cave, leaving Lu Yu to explore at his own pace. He proceeded slowly, growing increasingly cautious as the silence enveloped him. Suddenly, the clashing of weapons echoed through the darkness. The goblin assassin failed to relay any signals of danger, and Lu Yu did not receive any notifications from the system indicating that his summoned beasts were under attack. Could it be that other players had entered the fray? Lu Yu immediately tempered his footsteps, inching closer to the source of the sound. The further he advanced, the more expansive the cave became, and the environment gradually brightened. Seizing the flickering light, Lu Yu gazed towards the source of the noise, where several goblins were engaged in combat, 2 by 2. These goblins, unlike the other diminutive ones he had encountered, stood over 7 meters tall, even surpassing some humans in height. Clad in uniform black armor, they wielded long swords, bore longbows on their backs, and sported daggers at their waists, their muscular forms bulging beneath their armor. Goblin Elite Guard, Elite Monster, level, 18 health. Attack, Defense, Skills, / Rapid Fire. Swift movement. As expected, no discernible information was visible, but merely by observing their formidable stature, surpassing that of the colossal goblin, Lu Yu could infer that these goblin elite guards were indeed formidable foes. Suddenly, the combatants ceased their skirmish, dozens of eerie, glowing eyes fixating on Lu Yu's position. A jolt of fear coursed through him. He was nearly 100 meters away from those goblin elite guards and shrouded in shadows. How could they perceive him? Without granting Lu Yu a moment to recover from his astonishment, the goblin elite guards sprang into action the instant they detected him. 9 of the goblin elite guards glowed with a crimson light, their speed surging as they charged towards Lu Yu with their long swords drawn. Preceding them were arrows released by the rear guard, and Lu Yu witnessed one goblin archer beside him being instantly felled by 3 arrows, while he himself was struck by 2. 69-71. Ever since equipping the Crocodile King's leather armor, he had never sustained such significant damage from ordinary wild creatures. Lu Yu hastily retrieved a health potion, downing it in one swift motion, and summoned dozens of shallow water crocodiles before him to intercept the approaching elite guards. Faced with a multitude of shallow water crocodiles, the advancing elite guards quickly formed a defensive circle, their backs pressed together, cautiously testing their attacks. However, the level 10 shallow water crocodiles were no match for the elite guards. A single slash from an elite guard rendered a crocodile severely wounded, and a follow-up basic attack eliminated it instantly. Upon witnessing the shallow water crocodiles effortlessly succumb to their hands, the royal guard promptly altered their formation, shifting from a simultaneous action of 9 to an immediate division into 3 groups. 3 goblins launched their attacks in unison, each strike claiming a shallow water crocodile. The speed of the royal guard's assaults was astonishing. Within mere seconds, dozens of crocodiles lay lifeless, vanishing from sight, while not a single drop of blood was shed from the 9 guards, who afforded the crocodiles no chance of escape. The goblin archers in the back ranks were suppressed by the arrows of the royal guard the moment they dared to peek out. Before even knocking an arrow, they were transformed into mere targets. During this foray into the goblin lair, Lu Yu had designated the shallow water crocodiles as mere cannon fodder. However, even cannon fodder deserved a more dignified fate, especially when they had yet to even lay eyes on the goblin general. Lu Yu immediately issued an attack command to the goblin assassins, directing 7 daggers to strike at the same goblin royal guard. It was a principle of warfare that inflicting 10 wounds on the enemy was less advantageous than severing a single limb. Hence, Lu Yu aimed for a decisive blow with this ambush. Yet, at the instant the goblin assassin struck, the targeted royal guard seemed to sense the impending danger, rolling onto the ground, while several large miss notifications floated above, resulting in less than half of the intended damage being inflicted. Having rolled to safety, the goblin royal guard quickly regained its footing and drew its sword to retaliate, while its nearby comrades cast aside their bows, encircling the 7 goblin assassins. The goblin royal guards exhibited a level of training that greatly exceeded Lu Yu's expectations. Nevertheless, the current scenario played perfectly into his hands. With the goblin royal guards surrounding the assassins, their backs were now fully exposed. This was the moment. Backstab. Daggers appeared simultaneously at the backs of each royal guard. By the time they attempted to turn and retaliate, it was already too late, and a wave of damage erupted from above the goblin royal guards. The one goblin royal guard that had been reduced to half health was swiftly eliminated, while the others were similarly injured. However, the sudden ambush did not throw these guards into disarray. Upon being attacked, several of them swiftly dispatched the encircled goblin assassins, while the remainder turned to counterattack, forcing the assailants back. The royal guards, now critically wounded, hesitated to initiate an offensive, while the goblin assassins, lacking sufficient attack range, found no opportunity to strike. Thus, both sides found themselves locked in a standoff. Meanwhile, the goblin archers, now unrestrained, finally seized their chance to attack, with shallow water crocodiles absorbing damage in the front. and facing royal guards merely a dozen meters away, even with eyes shut, they could easily hit their targets. Lu Yu further summoned Blackwater snakes. Although their offensive power was limited, their rapid movement and agile forms disrupted the rhythm of the royal guards' attacks, causing a lack of cohesion in the Trio S formation. The balance of victory began to tilt in Lu Yu's favor, and mere minutes later, all the goblin royal guards were drawn into the summoning space. However, before Lu Yusong could catch his breath, an enraged roar echoed from the depths of the cave. A system notification announced that the goblin general, sensing the sacrifices of his subordinates, was beginning to grow furious. Chapter 26, PK Video. Accompanied by the system alert, the gates at the back of the training ground began to tremble slightly, as if something were about to break free. Lu Yu was taken aback. Was the goblin general about to emerge? Yet, after a brief shudder, the iron doors came to a halt, plunging the training ground into an eerie silence. Lu Yu exhaled quietly. He was far from certain he could confront the goblin general at that moment. Now that he had confirmed the boss's location, he could avoid inadvertently wandering into danger. Lu Yu marked the map and then circumvented the boss chamber, veering into another tunnel. To defeat the goblin general, not only would a substantial number of cannon fodder be necessary, but also sufficient damage output. Relying solely on the 5 formidable creatures, the giant goblin, the blackwater giant python, and the shallow water crocodile king, would undoubtedly prove inadequate. He would require ranged support to maximize damage. For ranged attacks, Lu Yu's primary target was the goblin archers. In the novice village, they were the only creatures capable of launching ranged assaults capable of breaching the defenses of the goblin general. The winding paths of the goblin cave often led him to encounter several goblin archers and goblin assassins at every turn. Lu Yu welcomed them all to him. These goblins were akin to young maidens presented to him after a warm bath. With the addition of the goblin guards, Lu Yu found hunting considerably easier. When encountering small groups of goblin brigands, he needn't even give commands. The goblin guards would automatically form ranks and swiftly dispatch them. With the assistance of the goblin archers and goblin assassins, after numerous skirmishes, the goblin guards had lost less than 10 of their health. With some leisure time on his hands, Lu Yu decided to browse the forum while strolling along the cave walls. As more players ventured into the secondary main city, the popularity of his solo video defeating the shallow water crocodile king boss had begun to wane. Moreover, as Lu Yu remained in the novice village, those envious of his professional talent found an outlet for their frustrations. Many flocked to the comments section of the original video to voice their critiques. What a joke of a pro, can't even leave the novice village. True top-tier players have long since thrived in the main city, and even most first-rate experts have departed from the novice village. I said he merely got lucky. His claims of interrupting boss skills are pure nonsense. Exactly. If he were truly that skilled, why would he still be in the novice village? He must be unable to defeat the village chief, merely putting on a show. Lu Yu opened a currently pinned thread on the forum, featuring a video of a champion guild strategy for defeating a level 20 boss. In the video, the Champions Alliance deployed just over 30 members, yet their synergy was remarkable. They expertly managed the boss's aggro and hatred distribution, ultimately defeating the boss with a mere casualty. Indeed, that one casualty was the unassuming warrior, who, during the boss's rampage, charged in wielding 2 axes, only to be swatted away by the boss, disintegrating into shards before even touching the ground. Lu Yu expressed both confusion and deep admiration for such self-sacrificial spirit. However, upon returning to the forum after closing the video, he discovered a sudden change in the pinned content. The original poster was again the unassuming warrior, with a title that read simply, Qingjiu's PK Video. Within 3 minutes of its release, the video amassed over 100,000 views. The content showcased the combat scene between Lu Yu and Zhu Xiaochuan, recorded from the very beginning by the unassuming warrior, capturing every moment, including the playful banter between Zhu Xiaochuan and Sun Xiaoyi at the outset. It turned out that he had activated his camera the moment he arrived. Although Lu Yu was the video's focal point, he found himself engrossed, watching until the moment the shallow water crocodile swallowed Zhu Xiaochuan, leaving him with an insatiable craving for more. Experiencing it firsthand provided one sensation, while revisiting it offered an entirely different perspective. It is no wonder that many affluent individuals seek to collaborate with stars in martial arts films once they attain wealth. There is an undeniable thrill in witnessing oneself shine in front of an audience. In the brief time that passed, the comments beneath the video erupted into chaos. Indeed, the Qingjiu master single-handedly fought against a dozen adversaries, nearly annihilating them all. It was not merely a near annihilation. The Qingjiu master possessed the capability to eliminate them entirely, but chose to spare them out of respect for the Outyin Alliance. Is the previous commenter a fool? Would the Outyin Alliance extend courtesy to a mere solo player? This must be staged. Is Outyin Xiaochuan truly so inept, continuously charging into the opponent's attack? Does this Qingjiu think we're fools? Now that his popularity has waned, he orchestrates a performance with someone else, hoping to regain attention by pinning it? You're the real fool. That is Outyin Xiaochuan, a top-tier expert recently acquired by the Outyin Alliance at a great expense, ranking at least in the top 10 nationally. He wasn't intentionally running into Qingjiu's attacks. Rather, Qingjiu had anticipated Xiaochuan's movements. Who was it that doubted Qingjiu's skills before? With such foresight, how many can match him? You must be astounded. This video alone is sufficient to demonstrate that Qingzhou is not merely a name without substance. His skills, even on a global scale, would rank among the top 3. But why? You might ask. Does he still linger in the novice village? Do not attempt to deceive with excuses of being preoccupied. I refuse to believe it. Indeed, I assert my stance today. If Qingzhou can depart from the novice village within 3 days, I shall broadcast live to recognize him as my elder brother. The individual above seems to have a clever scheme, subtly attempting to latch onto a powerful ally. Ziyaya remarked that, from the videos, Qingzhou's skills are indeed respectable. However, to claim he surpasses Xiaochuan is somewhat exaggerated. The primary reason Qingzhou managed to hold his ground against Xiaochuan lies in his extraordinary defensive capabilities. I suspect that the leather armor he possesses is the 5th-ranked bronze item, the Crocodile King leather armor, which he likely obtained after defeating the Crocodile King. It is this very armor that enabled him to withstand Xiaochuan's assaults, thus allowing him a stroke of luck in victory. Otherwise, the 2 strikes Xiaochuan landed at close range would have been sufficient to eliminate Qingzhou. Therefore, the defeat of the Outyin alliance stemmed not from a lack of operational skill, but from a disparity in equipment. Upon Ziyaya's comment, players opposing Qingzhou immediately rallied behind her, as if they had found a source of support. Indeed, let Qingzhou shed that leather armor and face me again. He wouldn't even need Xiaochuan to intervene. I could easily dispatch him myself. What skill is it to rely solely on a piece of equipment? Hand me a full set of bronze gear, and I could also take down the top 10 experts with ease. Lu Yu observed Ziyaya's remarks and couldn't help but click his tongue. This individual seemed perpetually aimed at targeting him. Chapter 27. An interruption. Ziyaya's point does hold some merit. Without the Crocodile King leather armor, he might have been swiftly dealt with by Zhu Xiaochuan upon close engagement. Of course, this assumes he refrains from utilizing summoned beasts. In a perfectly equitable duel against Zhu Xiaochuan, Lu Yu would not possess a guaranteed victory. Yet, fairness is a rare commodity in gaming. The ability to acquire the Crocodile King leather armor is a testament to one's skill. If Zhu Xiaochuan possesses such prowess, let him attempt to challenge a boss solo and secure a piece of bronze equipment as well. Lu Yu closed the forum and redirected his focus back to the game. Unbeknownst to him, he had traversed more than half of the cave, encountering and capturing goblin archers and assassins within his summoning space. The goblin population within the cave had dwindled significantly. In the dozen or so passages he had just traversed, he had not encountered a single goblin. Had he truly vanquished nearly all the goblins in this area? Lu Yu quietly reflected on the map he had traversed, initially dismissing the possibility of having been in this location during his first entry into the nest, when he had come previously with the intention of avoiding conflict. He had followed a straightforward path that led directly to the goblin hatchling's chamber. In contrast, the passages he had just navigated were convoluted and far from linear. As for having already swept through the area, that was even less plausible. Explored maps would be marked on the minimap, yet the passages ahead remained shrouded in shadow. Unusual occurrences often herald the presence of something sinister. Lu Yu immediately commanded the Goblin Imperial Guard, who were forging ahead, to slow their pace while dispatching additional goblin assassins to scout the surroundings. The reports relayed back from the goblin assassins conveyed a sense of normalcy. Lu Yu furrowed his brow. Could it truly be that this place was devoid of wild monsters? If this were an ordinary online game, he might have believed it. But he understood that the Abyss was more than just a game. It was a reality on the brink of manifestation. How could there be a glitch in reality? Even if there were, it could not possibly be of such a trivial nature. A system prompt echoed. You have entered the danger zone of the goblin nest. Please exercise caution. A danger zone? This kind of system message was something Lu Yu had never encountered before, even in his previous life. Yet, retreating now was out of the question. He was determined to uncover the hidden secrets of this cavern, beyond merely the boss room. Bending low and pressing against the wall, Lu Yu advanced cautiously, to safeguard against unforeseen threats. His hand remained poised within the summoning space, ready to call forth a boss-level creature at the first sign of danger. After a short while, the surrounding environment began to brighten, and the sound of feminine laughter drifted from afar. Oh dear, you've hurt me. Be gentler. If it weren't for that rascal causing a ruckus, I would have already indulged in the stamina potion. Lu Yu frowned. The voices were oddly familiar. Not far ahead, a wooden door stood ajar, with lights spilling from within, the laughter emanating from the stone chamber beyond. Cautiously, he approached the door, and the chamber's decor bore no distinction from that of a human woman's room. The center featured a table and chairs, leading inward to a vanity adorned with 2 candles and several daggers, beside which lay a bed, a cleaver resting against its side. The bed shifted slightly, with 2 figures entwined upon it. Lu Yu squinted, his eyes widening in disbelief. He recognized both individuals. The man on top was Li Er, the innkeeper from the novice village, while underneath him lay Widow Wang. The two collided physically, producing the sounds one might expect. Lu Yu inhaled sharply. Why were they both in the goblin nest? Before he could ponder further, the sound of his gasp startled the passionately engaged Li Er and Widow Wang. Who? A dagger flew through the door's crack, aimed directly at Lu Yu's face. He instinctively dodged, the dagger striking the rock wall and sparking. His presence had been detected. Deciding to confront the situation, Lu Yu stepped forth. Ladies, long time no see. I apologize for the intrusion. It's you? Widow Wang's demeanor shifted to one of cold intensity as she hastily wrapped a towel around herself, reaching for a dagger on the vanity. Li Er, shedding his affable demeanor, seized the cleaver from beside the bed. Young man, it is precisely because of you that I had to wait for an eternity. With that, he did not grant Lu Yu the opportunity to respond, charging at him with a machete in hand. Lu Yu dared not underestimate him. He had already experienced the prowess of Widow Wang, and anyone capable of subduing her would undoubtedly possess formidable strength. Lu Yu swiftly retreated, for the cramped confines of the stone chamber rendered combat exceedingly disadvantageous for him. Li Er, relentless, pursued closely behind. Beware of the goblin assassins, Widow Wang cautioned, but her warning came too late. Numerous goblin assassins had long been stationed in the nearby caverns, and as Li Er emerged, daggers were hurled at him from various angles. It seemed as though Li Er was oblivious, maintaining his relentless pursuit. The daggers struck Li Er as if they were piercing a block of iron, creating sparks but inflicting no damage whatsoever. Something was amiss. Lu Yu felt a sense of foreboding. Even the highest defenses would incur a loss of health upon being attacked. Why were all the strikes against Li Er resulting in misses? In a hurry, Lu Yu examined the information of Li Er and Widow Wang, and he was startled to find that their panels had transformed completely since their days in the novice village. Li Er, abyssal level 20 race, goblin skills, indestructible, alcoholism. Description: a member of the goblin race, infiltrating the human novice village on a secret mission. Widow Wang, abyssal level 20 race, goblin skills, basic ceiling, illusion, backstab, stealth. Description: a member of the goblin race, infiltrating the human novice village on a secret mission. Their panels now included a race description. Lu Yu's expression darkened ominously. The existence of a race indicated that they were not mere projections from the abyss, but rather beings that truly existed. Just as with humans, in the depths of the abyss, projections of humanity could appear among other races, capable of being slain, dropping gold, equipment, and enhancing experience. After the abyss's arrival, other races could view the genuine panels of humans and would see the term human in the racial description. Yet now, Lu Yu faced not projections, but tangible creatures that existed just like himself. Chapter 28. Illusion. Lu Yu stared in disbelief at the races of the two. How could this be possible? Why were foreign races entering the human realm before the abyss descended? Had they been discovered? Widow Wang chuckled alluringly. You shall not leave here today. I never intended to let him go, Li Er declared, cleaving through two goblin assassins before continuing his charge towards Lu Yu. The diminutive goblin assassins stood no chance against Li Er's assault, being easily toppled and decimated in an instant. The arrows of the goblin archers fell upon Li Er like raindrops, yet were thwarted by an outer layer of golden light, rendering them harmless. What kind of skill is this? An invulnerable golden body with no time limit? Lu Yu found the situation exceedingly troublesome. Even if he could not breach the defense, he was confident he could exhaust Li Er to death. However, with the opponent in a perpetual state of invincibility, how could he proceed? As Li Er charged forward, the goblin royal guards met him head-on. They coordinated their efforts to surround Li Er, momentarily preventing his advance. Just as Lu Yu thought he could catch his breath, a dagger flew through the air and struck his chest, 1817, nearly resulting in Lu Yu's demise. He swiftly pulled the dagger from his chest, gulped down a health potion, and continued to retreat, only to hear the mocking laughter of Widow Wang. Little brother, why are you only thinking about my late husband and forgetting about me? The voice seemed to possess a certain magic, and Lu Yu felt the scenery shift before his eyes. He was no longer in the cave, but instead found himself in a lascivious setting. The surroundings were filled with vibrant lights and intoxicating drinks, and simple-clad women danced gracefully around him, their snowy skin captivating his imagination. No wonder the ancients said that dying beneath the peony blossoms is to be a romantic spirit. But wait, I was just fighting Widow Wang. How did I suddenly end up here? It must be an illusion. Suddenly, Lu Yu felt a sharp pain in his chest, followed by a loss of strength, causing him to collapse to the ground. System notification: Widow Wang has attacked you, dealing 812 points of damage. System notification: you have died. Level 5. System notification: due to your presence in an evil map, your soul cannot return to the novice village. You will resurrect in place after 30 seconds. Lu Yu felt his body transform into a translucent state, floating in the air, while the body he had just occupied lay on the ground. A corpse clad in crocodile king armor, with a dagger still embedded in its chest. How tragic. Lu Yu glanced at his own corpse, then shifted his focus back to Li Er and Widow Wang. The summoned creatures had not vanished with his demise. They continued to fight according to Lu Yu's orders before his death. However, the situation was dire. Only 8 royal guards remained surrounding Li Er, and they were no match for him. They would surely perish before Lu Yu could resurrect. Meanwhile, Widow Wang had entered a stealth mode, systematically eliminating the hidden goblin assassins. While the summoned goblin archers had long been sent back to refresh, Lu Yu observed the combat rhythm of the two from above. Widow Wang was manageable. Although her movements were agile, she leaned more towards the attributes of an assassin. Lu Yu's summoning space was not lacking in assassins, and he could easily overwhelm her. As for the illusion skill, it would be difficult to succeed again now that Lu Yu was on guard. Now, the most formidable opponent is Li Er. The golden aura surrounding him renders him immune to all forms of damage, despite the goblin guards inflicting tremendous harm. Not a single drop of blood has been shed from Li Er since the onset of the battle. With Li Er preoccupying Lu Yu, he is unable to fully concentrate on the cunning widow Wang. Only 3 seconds remain until resurrection, and the goblin guards are nearly annihilated, with only one struggling to hold on. The sword in its hand lunges toward Li Er, who does not flinch or evade, allowing the blade to glide across his body. As the sword falls, the last goblin guard is cleaved in two. Lu Yu's gaze is fixated on the golden aura enveloping Li Er. He suddenly realizes that at the moment the goblin guard's sword struck the golden light, it seemed to dim slightly, a phenomenon absent in all prior attacks. What just transpired? What caused the weakening of Li Er's golden shield? As Lu Yu contemplates this, he feels a sudden heaviness in his body, and he swiftly descends back into his own form. In the instant of resurrection, a dagger appears behind Lu Yu. However, he had anticipated this and lunges forward, narrowly evading the backstab. Immediately, a multitude of summoned creatures emerges around him. Blackwater serpents, shallow water crocodiles, goblin assassins, and goblin archers, all drawn from the summoning space without a second glance. Unfortunately, the space is limited, or else he would have summoned the colossal goblin long ago. Even summoning these ordinary creatures has filled the cavern to capacity, leaving no room for Li Er and Widow Wang to approach. You think your summoned minions are inexhaustible? Once I dispose of these pesky beings, it will be your demise. Li Er bellows, swinging his blade repeatedly, each strike reducing several summoned creatures to mere fragments. Lu Yu pays no heed to Li Er's fury. He is acutely aware of the truth in Li Er's words. Given the current circumstances, his chances of victory are virtually non-existent. Summoning these creatures is merely a tactic to buy himself time. Lu Yu accesses the combat log, swiftly perusing the recent battle. The sheer number of his summoned beasts results in a multitude of combat records generated with each attack, and each instance of damage incurred similarly creates a record. Within the cavern, there are at least hundreds of summoned creatures, producing new records every second. To locate the combat record of the last goblin guard, he must rely on his speed and keen eyesight. His hands move rapidly, his eyes fixed intently on the information displayed on the panel. Suddenly, a notification catches his attention. System alert. Congratulations, you have successfully slain Widow Wang. Li Er, earning an experience reward of 200. What just happened? Have Widow Wang and Li Er been defeated by the summoned creatures? No. Lu Yu recoils sharply as a dagger grazes his neck. It is indeed an illusion. Lu Yu had been so engrossed in reviewing the records that he failed to notice the summoned beasts around him had been nearly annihilated by Widow Wang. This widow was even more cunning than he had anticipated, and he was fortunate to have reacted in time. Upon realizing her ambush had failed, Widow Wang swiftly entered stealth mode, vanishing from sight. Lu Yu promptly summoned another batch of beasts to surround himself while his gaze remained fixed on the information of the battle records. At last, the final blows combat record from the Goblin Guard scrolled into view. Your summoned beast, the Goblin Guard, inflicted critical damage on Li Er. Chapter 29. End of battle. Could a critical hit diminish the golden aura surrounding Li Er? Lu Yu's eyes sparkled with realization. Previously, only the Goblin Guard had engaged in combat with Li Er, and indeed, the battle records confirmed this singular critical hit. Yet, how could he enhance the critical hit rate? In the absence of equipment bonuses, the critical hit rate for an ordinary player hovers perilously close to 0. To achieve a critical hit, there exists but one method: relentless assault. Even the most minuscule probability can be magnified when faced with an adequately large base. To amass enough attacking instances, the optimal strategy is to have a sufficient number of units assault the target. Luckily, Lu Yu was not lacking in abundant summons. He summoned back the slower attacking shallow water crocodile and replaced all his summoned creatures with the swifter, higher critical hit rate goblin archers and goblin assassins. Both classes offered certain enhancements to attack speed and critical hit rate. Under Lu Yu's command, all summoned creatures abandoned their pursuit of Widow Wang and directed their full might against the golden aura enveloping Li Er. Hundreds of attacks rained down upon Li Er each second, resulting in 2 or 3 critical hits within mere moments. The golden aura surrounding Li Er was reduced to a mere thin layer. With just 1 or 2 more critical hits, it would be completely shattered. At this juncture, Li Er became visibly anxious, swinging his machete with increasing fervor. Human, if you have the guts, come and face me in a duel. Hiding behind a throng of traitors is no true skill. Lu Yu disregarded Li Er's impotent fury and continued to summon goblins to replenish those lost to Li Er and Widow Wang. Suddenly, several goblin archers aimed their arrows at Lu Yu. Without hesitation, he recalled them to the summoning space and summoned new goblins. While several attacks struck the position where the previous goblins had stood, a graceful figure was compelled into view, glaring at Lu Yu with fury. Lu Yu offered a slight smile, having anticipated this maneuver. If Widow Wang could cast illusions upon him, she could undoubtedly do the same to his summoned creatures. Dispelling the illusions from his summons would be far easier than breaking his own. Lu Yu meticulously monitored the situation of the goblins around him, swiftly recalling them to the summoning space at the first sign of trouble. As Widow Wang's ambush failed, she prepared to re-enter stealth mode once more. However, this time, Lu Yu was not inclined to let her escape easily. Previously, when Widow Wang had launched 2 surprise attacks, Lu Yu had been unprepared and could only watch helplessly as she stealthily slipped away. This time, however, Lu Yu was thoroughly prepared. Just as she was about to enter her stealth mode again, several daggers materialized from thin air. Widow Wang scoffed dismissively. A mere handful of goblin assassins could not hope to obstruct her. Such a notion was ludicrous. With just a few swift combinations of moves, she could easily dispatch them. The daggers in her hands danced gracefully, leaving trails of crimson on the bodies of the goblin assassins, and within mere seconds, all those who had dared to ambush her lay dead. What Lu Yu required was merely this brief moment of time. He had no expectation that the goblin assassins could defeat Widow Wang. His singular aim was to prevent her from entering her stealth state. With the annoying goblin assassins eliminated, Widow Wang was poised to vanish once more. However, she suddenly felt a constriction around her body, as if ensnared by something. A serpent, as thick as a water barrel, had tightly coiled around her legs, rendering her immobile. The Blackwater giant python, employing the skill Strangle, was the only boss-level summon Lu Yu could conjure in this confined cave. Even so, the serpent's considerable length barely managed to coil within the limited space, applying its strangling skill upon Widow Wang. Trapped within the swirling embrace of the serpent, she desperately drove her daggers into the flesh of the Blackwater giant python. The creature writhed in agony, yet the confines of the cave prevented it from fully extending its form, only tightening its grip on Widow Wang. Breathing became increasingly laborious for her, and her strikes grew feeble. Her health visibly dwindled, rapidly approaching the brink of death. It was merely a matter of time before she succumbed. Lu Yu was uncertain if, due to his class abilities, he could absorb Widow Wang into his summoning space upon her demise. For humans, the goblin race likely did not fall within the realm of players, did it? The commotion immediately caught the attention of Lier. Yet, before he could react, an arrow struck him. Critical hit. A crisp sound seemed to resonate in the air as the golden aura surrounding Lier shattered. Instantly, he was filled with dread and, disregarding Widow Wang's plight, turned to flee. He understood well that without his protective golden shell, this level 20 quasi-boss would inevitably fall to the onslaught of sheer numbers. The bond of the Du couple was vividly displayed in that moment. Yet, Lu Yu would not grant him the luxury of escape. Dozens of goblin assassins immediately gave chase. And swifter still were the arrows of the goblin archers. One by one, arrows rained down upon Lier's back, instantly reducing his health by half. Lier, stripped of his golden protection, appeared exceedingly fragile. As a warrior, his vitality was likely comparable to that of mages or assassins of the same level, and his mobility paled in comparison to that of the latter. The goblin assassins swiftly pursued the beleaguered Lier, unleashing a flurry of backstab skills that flickered across his back, causing his life force to plummet instantly. The goblin race would never spare humans. In a flash of light, Lier finally succumbed completely. Fear not, for I too harbor no intentions of sparing the goblin kind. Since the abyss descended, countless human girls have been captured by goblins, reduced to mere instruments of breeding. The fates of those girls are infinitely more tragic than those confined within the goblin breeding chambers. Lu Yu approached Lier's side and casually picked up the fallen machete, a piece of black iron that paled in comparison to the mantis blade, yet could still fetch a few tens of thousands. He nonchalantly tossed the machete onto the trading platform, restricting transactions to gold coins only. He no longer lacked for currency. Accumulating gold was paramount, as it had become the hard currency following the abyss's arrival. A system notification chimed. Your summoned creature, the Blackwater Python, has slain Widow Wang. Lu Yu exhaled softly, relieved that the two who had nearly cost him his life had finally been dealt with. He recalled his excess summons. In this skirmish, he had lost a third of his summons originally intended to confront the goblin general. There was still the matter of clearing the goblin lair. As Lu Yu turned to leave, a sudden system notification echoed in his ears. Detected that you have killed Widow Wang, goblin, and Lier, goblin. You may choose to absorb them into your summoning space. Current capacity for other species, 05. Chapter 30, Conscious Summoned Beasts. Lu Yu turned back, regarding the two corpses that had yet to vanish. Under normal circumstances, they should have returned to the goblin race's spring by now. However, the bodies remained, seemingly awaiting the execution of some process. He was astonished to discover that he could indeed absorb beings of other races into his summoning space. Although currently limited to 5 slots, this revelation was quite surprising to Lu Yu. It was akin to rendering a living being devoid of its own consciousness, entirely subservient to him. With this newfound power, Lu Yu saw no reason to hold back. The 13 summons he had lost could not be in vain. He deserved some compensation. He was unaware if the souls of Widow Wang and Lier lingered nearby, yet he smiled at the surrounding air and murmured, I apologize. Dear sirs. Unbeknownst to him, above his head, the two souls exchanged alarmed glances. It is worth noting that the goblin lair, deemed an evil map by humans, resembled a home to the goblin race. They were not bound by the rules of evil maps and could return directly to the spring upon death. They could not fathom why they had not yet returned to the spring, but instead remained in this place. Soon, they beheld Lu Yu approaching, adorned with an indescribable smile. Instantly, an ominous premonition surged within their hearts. Following this, an immense force began to tug at their souls and bodies, drawing them towards Lu Yu. Without any need for explanation, they understood that this was far from a favorable development. Recalling the goblin monstrosities summoned by Lu Yu, Widow Wang finally grasped the gravity of the situation. No. I do not wish to enter. Spare me. Her pleas went unheard by Lu Yu, who merely observed the additional human-like goblins within the summoning space, his satisfaction evident. Lier, Abyss level 20 race, Goblin health, 2,300 skills, Indestructible, Alcoholic, Fragile, Indestructible, active skill forms 5 layers of shields around the body, granting immunity to all damage. If a critical hit occurs, the shields shatter, lasting for 5 minutes with a cooldown of 24 hours. Alcoholic, passive skill enhances effects of alcoholic beverages by 100. Reduces adverse effects by 50. Fragile, passive skill significantly decreases own health and defense, and upon the expiration of Indestructible, defense is reduced by 50. Description: a member of the goblin race, infiltrating the human novice village on a secret mission. Widow Wang, Abyss level 20 race, Goblin skills, basic seal, illusion, backstab, stealth, basic seal, active skill applies a seal on the target using an item, causing a debuff, item missing, unable to use. Illusion, active skill creates an illusion to confuse the target, with a cooldown of 1 minute. Backstab, active skill launches a surprise attack from behind the target, ignoring 10 of the target's defense and dealing 150 damage, with a cooldown of 15 seconds. Stealth, active skill enters an invisible state, difficult to detect, lasting for 3 minutes with a cooldown of 30 seconds. Description: a member of the goblin race, infiltrating the human novice village on a secret mission. The skills of the two were akin to Lu Yu's speculations. Yet he was taken aback by the revelation that Li Er possessed a negative skill. No wonder he was so eager to flee after his protective shield was breached. Lu Yu promptly summoned Widow Wang and Li Er from the space. He was keen to discover whether sentient beings retained their consciousness upon becoming his summoned creatures. A flash of light illuminated the scene, and 2 figures materialized before Lu Yu, one slender and graceful, the other robust and muscular. Both knelt before him on one knee, proclaiming, "Li Er, this humble one, pays homage to the master. We apologize for our earlier transgression against you." Lu Yu scrutinized their eyes closely. Their loyalty to him appeared genuine, as if they had already surrendered their hearts to him. The Abyss Summoner profession is surprisingly formidable, capable of profoundly altering an individual's psyche. Rise. Lu Yu spoke with a calm demeanor. Widow Wang and Li Er stood up, poised before him. How did you traverse the abyss and enter among humans? A flicker of confusion passed across their faces. Master, we do not comprehend your meaning. What is your purpose in coming to the human novice village? Master, we do not comprehend your meaning. What status did you hold in your clan? Master, such information eludes our memory. Do you know your names? In response, I am called Li Er. Master, I am known as Wang Xiufan. Then how did you enter this cavern? Master, we cannot recall. Lu Yu lowered his gaze, contemplating. Their expressions did not suggest deceit, for the bewilderment in their eyes was genuine. Whenever questions pertained to their past, confusion enveloped them. It appeared that a considerable portion of their memories had been sealed or even obliterated upon entering the summoning space. The present Li Er and Widow Wang were merely 2 goblins endowed with independent consciousness and substantial combat experience. Lu Yu shook his head, lamenting the inability to extract any valuable information from them. The other races had infiltrated humanity long before the abyss descended, a revelation that had eluded Lu Yu until now. No wonder humanity found itself in a state of passive defense after the abyss's arrival. It seemed the other races had already commenced their machinations against humanity. He pondered whether the higher echelons had received this intelligence and how they would respond. However, judging by the circumstances surrounding Li Er and Widow Wang, it was evident that there were schemes afoot involving the goblin clan within the novice village. Lu Yu retracted the 2 back into the summoning space. Regardless of their plans, he needed to first eliminate the goblin general and turn this goblin lair into a death trap. The skills of Li Er and Widow Wang would prove invaluable in confronting the boss. He could not afford to let them lose even a fraction of their vitality. Lu Yu wandered once more through the lascivious chambers of the 2, ensuring there was nothing of value before departing the cavern. A few additional goblin archers and goblin assassins would suffice before engaging the boss. Chapter 31. Goblin General Lu Yu continued to explore the cavern, hoping to uncover new clues. However, apart from goblin archers and goblin assassins, no other anomalies were present in the other caverns. He had thoroughly examined 90 of the goblin lair. Having vanquished all the goblins within, his level had reverted back to level 10. Only the chamber of the goblin general remained unexplored. Returning now, he could also retrieve the 18 goblin guards back into the summoning space before confronting the boss. Lu Yu retraced his steps through the cavern, returning to the training ground. To his dismay, the place was utterly deserted, devoid of any trace of the guards. Were they yet to respawn? The guards possessed neither stealth nor invisibility skills. As Lu Yu surveyed his surroundings, he indeed found no sign of their presence, prompting him to shake his head in disappointment. The combat prowess of the goblin guards far surpassed that of ordinary goblins. If only he could summon them into his space, his chances of success would increase significantly. Alas, such was not the case. Approaching the chamber of the goblin general, Lu Yu found the bronze doors firmly shut, silence enveloping the room within. Taking a deep breath, he pressed his hands against the door and pushed with all his might. The door remained immovable. Lu Yu? System notification. Your strength is insufficient to budge this door. This posed no problem. Lu Yu summoned a colossal goblin beast, stepping back a few paces. The giant goblin strained against the bronze door, causing it to tremble slightly, yet it remained closed. One was not enough. He summoned 2, 3, and then 4 more. In a flurry, 4 additional boss-level creatures emerged, and together, the 5 summoned beasts pushed against the bronze door, producing a grating creak that sent dust cascading from above, revealing an ancient hall before Lu Yu. Inside the hall, dust lay thick upon the ground, casting a dim light across the intricately decorated pillars and beams. Lu Yu paused at the entrance, not rushing inside, as footprints marked the dust-laden floor. Suddenly, a large blade sliced through the darkness, instantly reducing the lurking goblin assassins to mere fragments. Indeed, an ambush awaited within. A smirk crept across Lu Yu's lips. Even the most noble of the goblin race could not escape their inherent treachery. A mere boss from a novice village dared to launch a sneak attack on him? If they wanted him to enter, he would resolutely refuse such a ploy. Abruptly, a powerful force pulled at Lu Yu, rendering him unable to escape. The 5 boss-level summoned beasts were similarly ensnared, subjected to a far greater pull than Lu Yu himself. 3 colossal goblins clung desperately to the doorframe, while the Crocodile King and the Black Water Python were effortlessly drawn inside. Lu Yu attempted to hold on, but as a summoner, his strength was limited. Faced with such overwhelming force, he found himself at a loss. Unable to resist any longer, his body was propelled into the hall, closely followed by the 3 colossal goblins. They might have held out a bit longer, but with Lu Yu's entry, they could hardly remain outside. At the moment the giant goblins were pulled into the hall, the bronze door slammed shut, plunging the surroundings into darkness. Suddenly, candles ignited along the sides of the hall, one by one, until their warm glow illuminated the forefront of the chamber. A colossal goblin, clad in armor and boasting a formidable physique, sat regally upon his throne. One hand rested on the armrest, while the other wielded a large blade, the tip of which dripped with a hint of green blood. The goblin general, bronze tier boss, stood at level 30, a true bronze tier foe. Lu Yu silently cursed the ancient ancestors of the village elder in his mind. Here I am, a mere level 10 Kalami, summoned to confront a level 30 bronze tier boss. This is a bronze tier creature, one typically encountered only in a level 2 main city. It took a coalition of the finest and most elite experts from the Champion Alliance to defeat a mere level 20 iron tier boss. And now, I am expected to face a level 30 bronze tier boss alone. This old wretch truly underestimates me. Human, you have disturbed my rest. The voice of the goblin general reverberated throughout the grand hall, echoing with a thunderous resonance. Upon hearing the proclamation, the colossal goblins shrank to the ground, paralyzed with fear. The Crocodile King and the Blackwater Giant Python exhibited equal signs of fright. System notification. You and your summoned beasts are affected by the skill, Intimidation, resulting in a 10 reduction in all attributes. The debuff effect on goblin race summoned beasts is doubled. This was a miscalculation. I hadn't anticipated that the goblin general possessed a group debuff skill, particularly one that had the effectiveness of my goblin summons. Within Lu Yu's summoned realm, goblins were in the majority. With no other option, he steeled himself for the confrontation. Disturbing this general's respite will come at a cost. Cost? You must be joking. Lu Yu thought fiercely, commanding 3 colossal goblins to rise from the ground and launch themselves at the goblin general. Seeking death, the goblin general bellowed, swinging his blade horizontally and cleaving the first colossal goblin at the waist. The creature was sent flying several meters, nearly severed in 2, releasing a wretched scream as its health plummeted below 30, rendering it incapacitated and unable to continue the fight. The remaining 2 colossal goblins met a similar fate, sent sprawling through the air. With a single stroke, the goblin general effortlessly repelled half of Lu Yu's forces, leaving 1 incapacitated and 2 injured. Lu Yu's eyes narrowed. He had truly encountered an insurmountable challenge. Human, your subordinates are as feeble as you. Submit to me, and I shall alleviate your suffering. Lu Yu disregarded the goblin general's words entirely. With a flourish of his hands, he summoned a cadre of goblin archers and assassins around him. Overestimating yourselves, the goblin general roared. The freshly summoned minions were immediately affected by Intimidation, suffering a 20 reduction in all attributes. Simultaneously, hundreds of arrows soared through the air, all aimed at the goblin general. Unperturbed by the barrage of arrows, the goblin general remained seated, allowing the rain of projectiles to pelt against his armored form, seemingly unfazed by the onslaught. In the midst of battle, half of the attacks failed to find their mark, while the remaining arrows inflicted only minimal force damage. A volley of arrows had barely reduced the goblin general's health by a mere 200 points. As if unfazed, The Goblin General casually brushed off the arrows, instantly restoring his vitality. The damage sustained from the attacks was insufficient to rival his remarkable regenerative abilities. Chapter 32. All means employed. Faced with a bronze-tier boss, Lu Yu resolved to exert every ounce of effort. No longer would he hold back. Two colossal goblins launched a surprise assault on the Goblin General from either flank, while the Crocodile King unleashed its skill, the Blood Basin Mouth, directly from the front. Concurrently, the Goblin archers maintained their relentless barrage. Even if their damage per second paled in comparison to the boss's healing rate, they aimed to annoy him persistently. Despite the onslaught from 3 boss-level summoned beasts, the Goblin General remained seated. He lowered his long blade, and as the Crocodile King lunged forth, he deftly thrust the blade upward, slicing through the creature's abdomen and continuing deeper. A flash of golden light enveloped the Crocodile King as its invincible golden body skill activated, momentarily thwarting the blade's advance. The Goblin General scoffed disdainfully, applying further force to his long blade, sending the Crocodile King flying through the air. At that instant, the colossal goblins arrived, raising their massive clubs high before bringing them down with tremendous force. The Goblin General raised his arms to block. The club struck his arms with a resounding thud. 506. 511. The 2 strikes dealt over 1,000 points of damage, finally diminishing his lengthy health bar. "How dare you insolent wretches act so brazenly before me?" he bellowed. As another club descended, the Goblin General ceased his defense, allowing the 2 clubs to crash against his chest. 706. 693. Seizing the moment, he discarded his long blade, grasped one of the colossal goblins by the arm, and yanked it towards him. With both hands pressing down on their skulls, he exerted force inward. Bang! A dull thud resonated through the hall as the 2 heads collided violently, rendering the colossal goblin unconscious. Yet, before the Goblin General could release his grip, a massive python surged forth from behind him, sinking its fangs into his arm. He flung aside the colossal goblin and reached out to seize the assailant, the Blackwater Python. However, the python had no intention of lingering. It swiftly retreated after delivering its bite. System notification: your summoned beast, the Blackwater Python, inflicted 101 points of damage on the Goblin General, inducing a poison effect that would drain 30 points of health per second, reducing healing effects by 50, and lasting for 30 seconds. Excellent. This was precisely the effect desired. The earlier frontal assault by the Crocodile King and the flanking attack by the colossal goblins were all orchestrated to compel the Goblin General to relinquish his long blade, thus creating an opportunity for the Blackwater Python to strike. If the healing ability of the Goblin General is not diminished, the battle cannot possibly continue. Seizing the opportunity of the weakened healing, the Goblin archers unleash a frenzied assault, while the Goblin assassins, cloaked in stealth, emerge behind the Goblin General. The skill of Backstab illuminates the area with a brilliant flash. In an instant, the Goblin General's health plummets significantly. "Human, you have provoked me." The Goblin General stomps the ground with fury, rising to his full height, his hands gripping the massive blade, swinging it in a wide arc behind him. The chair is instantly cleaved in 2, and dozens of Goblin assassins are annihilated on the spot. Turning his gaze towards Lu Yu, the Goblin General's eyes are filled with a chilling rage. "Human, I offered you a chance, yet you insist on your own demise. I shall grant your wish." Damn! He has locked his aggro onto me. Lu Yu senses the impending danger. His frail form cannot withstand even a single strike from the Goblin General. Without hesitation, he conjures a multitude of shallow water crocodiles to impede the Goblin General's advance. However, the Goblin General remains unfazed, steadily approaching Lu Yu, each of his steps echoing ominously throughout the grand hall. The crocodiles before him are crushed underfoot, reduced to mere pulp, despite the presence of hundreds. They fail to hinder the Goblin General's relentless march. Though the hall is vast, most of the space is occupied by the Goblin archers, who represent the hope of wearing down the Goblin General. With a mighty swing of his long sword, the Goblin General descends with lethal precision, should the blade connect. Lu Yu would be cleaved in twain. Facing the descending sword, Lu Yu neither dodges nor flinches. Just as the blade is about to strike him, a figure enveloped in golden light appears. Li Air, indestructible. The blade strikes the golden aura, inflicting no harm, yet the immense force sends Li Air crashing to the ground, shattering the tiles beneath him. The Goblin General delivers this strike with all his might. The sword's edge rebounds off Li Air's golden shield, trembling violently in the air, causing the Goblin General to stagger backwards. Upon recognizing Li Air amidst the golden glow, the expression of the Goblin General shifts instantly, his usually composed demeanor giving way to fury. "You too have allied with this human. Cursed be it. To protect my master is my life's mission." Li Air stands resolutely before Lu Yu, preventing the Goblin General's colossal blade from reaching him. "Li Air, your invincible form cannot last forever. Once it dissipates, your demise will follow." The Goblin General, dismissing Lu Yu and Li Air, charges into the throng of goblins. These bothersome little creatures continue to sap his health. Although they have only managed to reduce it by 20% thus far, the arrows piercing his flesh still evoke sharp pangs of pain. The Goblin General whirls his long sword into a tempest, severing the heads of goblins that cross his path. The grand hall was soon enveloped in a hue of dark green, the stench of blood permeating the air. Yet, regardless of how many goblins he dispatched, a relentless stream of them continued to materialize, his health points persistently dwindling. Human, I shall ascertain just how many goblins you can summon. The goblin general extended his right hand, slowly clenching it, a powerful force drawing all nearby goblins towards him. With a single hand gripping his blade, he spun his body, the blade whirling horizontally in a complete circle, and suddenly the hall fell silent, only to be followed by the explosive demise of thousands of goblin bodies. The goblin general lowered his long blade, allowing the blood to cascade down. Some insignificant wretches dare to run rampant in my territory. This is your fate. Leaning on his long sword, he gazed at Lu Yu and Lier, who stood motionless in the distance, seemingly oblivious to the chaos that had just unfolded. The goblin general's brow furrowed as he glanced at his health points, his expression shifting in alarm. No, the effects of the poison should have long since worn off, and all the goblins have been dealt with. Why do my health points continue to decline? His health was now perilously close to 30. It's an illusion. You two have become pawns for this human. Chapter 33. A desperate situation. Lu Yu watched as the goblin general, spinning in place, suddenly raised his hand, the blade slicing through his arm, dark green blood gushing forth, shattering the illusion. The hall was littered with the corpses of 100 shallow water crocodiles and goblins still furiously drawing their bows. At last, the goblin general's health points fell below 30. Human, you have thoroughly enraged this general, and you two wretched sycophants, today, all of you shall pay the price. The goblin general roared, lifting his long sword forward. Instantly, the air around him thickened with smoke. After a chilling breeze, the mist dissipated, revealing 18 goblin elite guards standing in formation before him. Then, the goblin general retrieved a horn from his waist and blew into it with all his might. Boo! System notification. The goblin general activated the skill, War Horn, enhancing all allied goblin units' attributes by 50. Upon hearing the war horn, the goblin elite guards were invigorated, their already robust muscles becoming even more solidified. They marched in unison, the clanking of their armor resonating as they fixed their fierce gazes upon Lu Yu and his summoned beast, brimming with a thirst for battle. No wonder the goblin elite guards had not been seen refreshing. They were, in fact, the direct vanguard of the goblin general. Lu Yu instantly sensed the impending peril. The initial success in overcoming the goblin elite guards had relied on the fortunate ambush by the goblin assassins. Now, with the goblin general present, any hopes of a sneak attack seemed utterly futile. Moreover, under the influence of the goblin horn, the attributes of the goblin royal guard have surged by 50%. The giant beast goblin that has been rendered incapacitated has succumbed to death due to excessive bleeding, while the remaining 2 giant beast goblins lie in a state of unconsciousness, their golden forms having been forcefully expelled. Only the black water python remains in relatively good condition. Yet it must inflict close-range damage upon the goblin general every half-minute to ensure the latter remains poisoned. Previously, the goblin general was ensnared by illusions, rendering close combat relatively safe. However, with the illusions now dispelled, any attempt at close-range assault could prove fatal. The efficacy of illusion magic is at its peak when first employed. Once the target becomes wary, subsequent uses are easily unraveled. Lier and Widow Wang have joined forces to ensnare the goblin general, preventing him from attacking Lu Yu and the other summoned beasts. The protective golden light surrounding Lier has been shattered 3 layers deep, and the boss's critical strike rate far exceeds that of players at this stage. Even if his golden light were to remain intact, it would only hold for less than 2 minutes before failing. Meanwhile, the 18 goblin royal guards have initiated a sprint. The nearest goblin archer hastily shifts targets, drawing back his bow to unleash arrows toward the advancing guards. The goblin archer's attacks are inherently incapable of significantly breaching the guards' defenses. And with the enhanced attributes of the guards, the archers can no longer penetrate their defenses at all. The arrows merely inflict minimal forced damage upon the guards. Lu Yu inwardly curses. Despite possessing considerable strength and an ample supply of summoned beasts that would suffice for an extended period even after entering the secondary main city, he feels woefully inadequate, unable to breach the defenses of any boss. Now, it has worsened. Not only can he not breach the boss's defenses, but even the elite monster's defenses remain impenetrable. The formation of 18 goblins resembles a sharp sword, piercing directly into the ranks of the goblin archers. The charging goblin royal guards cut through like tigers among sheep, their long swords swinging indiscriminately, leaving behind a field of corpses in their wake. Though they appear to rampage through the goblin ranks haphazardly, their objective is unmistakably clear: Lu Yu, who is concealed among the goblins. Lu Yu continuously shifts his position, yet the goblin royal guards relentlessly lock onto him time and again. The ordinary goblins are utterly incapable of halting the guards' advance, and they draw perilously close to Lu Yu. It will not be long before the blade strikes him, and Lu Yu does not believe he can withstand the combined assault of 18 goblin royal guards. Suddenly, beside the throne in the hall, 2 massive figures slowly rise, shaking their heads as if still in a dazed state. Lu Yu is instantly filled with joy. Disregarding the condition of the giant beast goblins, he commands them to attack the goblin royal guards. The colossal goblin grasped the wooden stick that had fallen beside it and staggered toward the goblin guard with a lumbering charge. The goblin guard immediately sensed the impending danger, and the 18-member squad swiftly divided into two groups. One group sheathed their long swords and removed their bows from their backs, aiming at the two colossal goblins to unleash their skill, rapid fire. The other group formed a protective circle around the archers, guarding them against potential ambushes from goblin assassins. Lu Yu ground his teeth in frustration. The same tactic had failed to yield results once more. Dozens of sneaky goblin assassins had surrounded the guard, but found themselves unable to strike. Curse it! Did these creatures not reset their memories upon respawning? At this rate, before the colossal goblins could reach the guard, they would be struck down by arrows first. There was no choice but to charge ahead. With a commanding shout, Lu Yu ordered the goblin assassins to emerge from their stealth and launch a surprise attack. However, the goblin guard was well prepared, easily fending off the assassin's assault. After a brief skirmish, not a single goblin guard fell to the attackers. Instead, dozens of goblin bodies littered the ground. Before Lu Yu could summon more goblin assassins, the colossal goblins had already collapsed, their forms lifeless on the ground. The guard promptly stowed their bows and drew their long swords, advancing further toward Lu Yu. He glanced into his summoning space, where many summoned creatures remained, yet none posed any real threat to the goblin guard, serving only as mere cannon fodder. Cannon fodder it was, but even a minute's delay was precious. Lu Yu could only hope to wear down the goblin general before Li'er fell in close combat. Once the goblin general was defeated, all other problems would be easily resolved. Desperately, Lu Yu began to pull summoned creatures from the summoning space, be it goblin assassins, goblin archers, or shallow water crocodiles. Any creature that could hinder the goblin guard's advance, even the tiniest goblin spawn, was summoned forth. Just then, a sharp sound echoed through the air. Lu Yu's heart stopped abruptly. The sound was all too familiar. He turned to see Li'er's golden form shatter, and before he could turn to flee, the goblin general's long blade descended, cleaving Li'er in two. Chapter 34, Dual Line Combat System Prompt. Your alien summoned creature, Li'er, has returned to your summoning space and can be resummoned in 24 hours. Lu Yu could hardly ponder the implications of this system prompt. The goblin general was already charging toward him with a furious roar, and his health had plummeted dangerously close to 10. There was nothing left to impede the monster's advance. Human, what will you do now? Lu Yu swiftly summoned goblins and shallow water crocodiles in a desperate attempt to block the goblin general's rampage. However, these summoned beasts proved utterly incapable of hindering his advance. The goblin general swung his long sword with the ferocity of a meat grinder, mercilessly harvesting the lives of the summoned creatures. Lu Yu extended his right hand, and Li'er was summoned once more. The goblin general snorted disdainfully. Dare you employ illusions again? Gripping his long sword, he struck it fiercely into the ground, sending sparks flying. The resounding clang of metal against stone echoed through the grand hall as the illusion shattered. A lithe figure wielding a dagger materialized behind the goblin general. Backstab, the widow Wong unleashed her full might, driving the dagger deep into the goblin general's ribs, delivering a critical strike of 3,766 damage. A golden aura enveloped the goblin general as he flung the dagger, along with the widow Wong, away from him. Invincible body. The successful backstab had reduced the goblin general's health below 10, triggering the effect of invincible body. Wong widow, you seek death. Enraged, the severely wounded goblin general clenched his left fist and yanked violently. A tremendous force yanked the widow Wong, who had yet to enter stealth, towards him. He then raised his long sword above his head and brought it down with devastating force. The widow Wong desperately attempted to flee, but the overwhelming pull rendered her powerless to escape. Terror etched across her face. She could only watch helplessly as the long sword descended, 1977 damage, leaving her nearly lifeless. This was untenable. Facing the goblin general alone was tantamount to delivering oneself as a meal. Lu Yu urgently commanded the widow Wong to retreat, as the Crocodile King charged forward to intercept the goblin general's next assault. The already weakened Crocodile King was swiftly slain, allowing the widow Wong to re-enter stealth. Humans, let me see how many summoned beasts remain to withstand my strike. None remained, Lu Yu silently lamented. Given the current circumstances, it seemed likely that he would perish here. Despite having reduced the goblin general's health by 90, this had only been possible due to Li'er absorbing the goblin general's attacks. Now that Li'er was no more, Lu Yu found himself devoid of any summoned beasts capable of blocking the goblin general's onslaught. Cursed old village chief. He must surely know that the goblin general is a level 30 bronze grade boss, yet he still sent me here. That old man must relish the thought of watching me perish, thus avoiding payment for the quest. At this moment, Lu Yu harbored grave doubts about whether the old village chief truly possessed any skill books that could restore health to summoned beasts. Yet, the goblin general offered no respite for Lu Yu's grievances, steadily advancing towards him, longsword in hand. Meanwhile, the 18 goblin elite guards were also drawing nearer, their bodies riddled with arrows, each below half health. However, given the current distance, the goblin archers would likely be unable to eliminate them before they closed in. Before him stood the goblin general, while to his right loomed the goblin royal guard, and behind him lay the walls of the grand hall. The sole boss-level summoned creature had already been grievously wounded. Lu Yu found himself with no retreat left, with his summons nearly obliterated. It was only a matter of time before he faced his own demise. Having discerned the Goblin General's attack patterns, he felt he could evade for a while, provided the foe refrained from employing that inexplicable pull. Above all, he must not allow the general to breach the ranks of the Goblin archers. They represented Lu Yu's primary source of offensive power. With determination, Lu Yu advanced toward the Goblin General. Human, have you come to bow and confess? Too late. Bow to you? Never. With a fierce flick of his left hand, he unleashed a spell that struck the Goblin General squarely in the face. Human, I shall grasp you in my hands and crush you piece by piece. Lu Yu ceased his verbal exchange, responding only with a barrage of spells directed at the loquacious Goblin General. The general bellowed, swinging his long sword in a wide arc, aiming a downward strike at Lu Yu. Lu Yu sidestepped and retreated half a step, the blade slicing through the air before him, resulting in a glaring miss. Simultaneously, 2 consecutive spells hit the Goblin General. The general retracted his long sword, transforming his downward strike into a sweeping slash, carving a semicircle in front of him. Yet, as the general withdrew his blade, Lu Yu had already begun to back away, the blade grazing his crocodile skin armor. Another miss. The Goblin General's expression darkened, and he wielded his sword with even greater ferocity. Increasing his speed, Lu Yu remained unflustered, deftly maneuvering to evade the general's assaults while skillfully casting spells, ensuring the enmity remained firmly on him. Human, I must commend your agility. In light of that, I offer you an opportunity to pledge your loyalty to me. Submit and become one of my royal guards, and I may spare your life. Lu Yu remained silent, continuing to evade damage while striking back. You cannot defeat me. I can easily slay you. In this cave. Upon your demise, you shall not return to the spring. Lu Yu felt a flicker of surprise. The Goblin General's description had not included any racial details. Yet he seemed aware of the abyss's existence. Nevertheless, Lu Yu did not relent in his assault. The Goblin race had managed to infiltrate the human realm before the abyss's arrival. It was not entirely unfathomable for a boss to possess some knowledge of the abyss. Seeing Lu Yu's indifference to his words, the Goblin General snorted disdainfully. Since you seek death, I shall oblige. With that proclamation, the general's left hand formed a grip, and a powerful pull ensnared Lu Yu's body, rendering him unable to escape. Lu Yu struggled with all his might, but he found himself inexorably drawn closer to the Goblin General. I grant you one final chance. Submit to me, and you may yet escape death. In response, Lu Yu unleashed a spell attack. The Goblin General let out a cold snort, his left hand tightening its grip, and an overwhelming force propelled Lu Yu directly towards him. The Goblin General raised his long blade, cleaving Lu Yu's body in two. The severed remains gradually vanished from the ground. Huh! The Goblin General emitted a light exclamation, gazing curiously at the spot where the corpse had disappeared. Would the bodies refresh within the evil map as well? In the distance, Lu Yu consumed a health potion, his vitality gradually rising above half. While simultaneously controlling his doppelganger to engage the boss, he coordinated with Widow to eliminate the Goblin Royal Guard. A dual-tasking endeavor that proved quite challenging. Chapter 35. The first kill of the bronze boss. Lu Yu waved his hands lightly, summoning the Goblin Royal Guard behind him. 18 Goblin Royal Guards, in pristine condition and with an imposing demeanor, stared menacingly at the Goblin General. Human, why do you still draw breath? How can you command my Royal Guards? It is not control. They merely submit to my authority, Lu Yu replied, a slight smirk gracing his lips as he gestured with one hand. The Goblin Royal Guard howled and charged at the Goblin General. A flicker of panic finally crossed the Goblin General's face. His health had long fallen below 10. The earlier distraction caused by the Royal Guards had allowed the Goblin archers to barely suppress his regeneration, which was why he had been leisurely dealing with Lu Yu. However, in an instant, the tides of battle shifted, and his own Royal Guards began to fight valiantly for this human before him. Had he been unscathed, he would not have feared the additional Royal Guards summoned by Lu Yu. But now, the Goblin General was severely weakened. Should he become entangled with the Royal Guards while facing the archers' onslaught, his fate would be dire. The crucial task now was to eliminate that human. Once the human fell, the remaining summoned creatures would undoubtedly vanish. With a firm grip on his long blade, the Goblin General charged directly at Lu Yu. The Goblin Royal Guards formed a blockade, obstructing his path. The Goblin General roared furiously, enduring the slashes of the Royal Guard swords that carved bloody gashes across his body, yet he did not relent in his advance. With a swing of his blade, 2 Goblin Royal Guards were sent flying. Seizing the opportunity, he lunged towards Lu Yu, bringing his blade down with ferocity. Lu Yu slightly sidestepped, evading the strike. How absurd. Even during my dual tasking earlier, you couldn't land a blow on me, now that I am fully focused. Do you truly believe you can cleave me in two? The Goblin Royal Guards regrouped, encircling the Goblin General as their swords repeatedly sliced into his flesh. The Goblin General could only swing wildly, retaliating incessantly, but the attributes of the Royal Guards were far superior to those of mere shallow-water crocodiles or fragile goblin assassins. He was unable to eliminate the Royal Guards in a single blow, and upon sustaining injuries, each Goblin Royal Guard would promptly retreat, allowing a fresh one to take its place. In that moment, the Goblin General found himself ensnared, his health dwindling to below 5. You are courting death. The goblin general emitted a furious roar, consumed by an uncontrollable frenzy. He relinquished his long sword with his left hand, only to grip it tightly once more. Lu Yu sensed an impending doom. Alas, his skill cooldown had just expired. No sooner had this thought crossed his mind than Lu Yu's body was yanked into the air, landing directly in the clutches of the goblin general. I have vowed to crush you with my own hands. A tremendous pressure enveloped Lu Yu, and he felt his bones gradually developing cracks, beginning to splinter. The excruciating pain threatened to render him unconscious, while his recently replenished health rapidly diminished. Had he known, he would have set his pain threshold to the lowest possible level. Gritting his teeth, Lu Yu struggled against the agony. Suddenly, a series of cracking sounds resonated throughout his body, and he felt a release, as if he were floating in midair. System notification. The goblin general inflicted 2,500 points of damage upon you. System notification. You have perished, level 5. System notification. As you are situated in an evil zone, your soul cannot return to the novice village's spring. You shall resurrect in place after 30 seconds. Lu Yu bent over to gaze at his mangled form and couldn't help but tremble slightly. The pain was unbearable. Beside him, the goblin general burst into laughter. But soon his mirth faded, replaced by sheer terror as he observed the remaining goblins still attacking. You are dead. Why do they continue to assault? No. Could it be? Are you a practitioner of the abyss? Damn it. You must be an abyss summoner. Cursed fate. The goblin archers and the goblin elite guards continued their relentless assault on the goblin general, whose health now dwindled to almost imperceptible levels. Human, you have slain this projection. I shall remember you. When the abyss descends, no race shall spare you. Ha! An abyss summoner has emerged among the weakest of humanity. An arrow struck the goblin general squarely in the forehead, freezing his expression in an instant. His body shattered into countless fragments, soaring towards Lu Yu's summoning space, leaving behind 4 items. System notification. Congratulations. You have completed the first kill of the novice village's bronze-level boss, Goblin General. Rewards. 10,000 reputation, 200 experience points. And the item, Guild Establishment Order. System announcement. Congratulations to player Qingjio for achieving the first kill of the novice village's bronze-level boss, Goblin General. Rewards. 10,000 reputation, 200 experience points, and the item, Guild Establishment Order. This announcement serves to encourage all players to strive for further achievements. WOC. The Guild Establishment Order has been issued. This is an essential item for founding a guild. While there are numerous alliances and guilds in the game, they are not officially recognized by the system. Only guilds established with the Guild Establishment Order will gain the system's acknowledgement, as well as the recognition of the abyss. Moments later, Lu Yu's body gradually began to restore itself. He slowly rose from the ground, gently shaking off the remnants of his ordeal. The agonizing sensation of shattered bones lingered deeply in Lu Yu's mind, as if the very structure of his body still bore the scars of fragmentation. After a considerable pause, Lu Yu finally exhaled softly. Within the summoning space, the imposing goblin general stood motionless, his gaze vacant and expression dulled, reminiscent of the ordinary wild boss. The shallow water crocodile king. Lu Yu smacked his lips. The goblin's final utterances were indeed worthy of contemplation. The mere projection was capable of communicating with the consciousness of its abyssal counterpart, suggesting that the true power of the goblin general was unfathomable. However, given his current state, it was likely that no insightful information could be gleaned. The likes of Widow Wang and Lier, who had come in their true forms, lost all memory upon death, and a mere projection would presumably know even less. Nevertheless, even if there were matters of significance, they were beyond the capabilities of his current level 5 calamity. It was best to focus on the immediate task at hand. The goblin general had perished, yet the spoils of his defeat awaited collection. A level 30 bronze tier boss should not yield worthless items. Lu Yu approached the site of the goblin general's demise and retrieved the dropped items from the ground. There were a total of 4 items, 2 pieces of equipment, a map, and a purple skill book. Chapter 36. Wind Whispering Staff and Warhorn. The map resembled the one dropped by the previous giant beast goblin, but provided a more detailed depiction of the goblin lair. Having thoroughly explored the goblin nest, Lu Yu recognized that the map's sole purpose was to assist him in his departure. He casually tossed it into his backpack and turned his attention to the equipment. Before him lay a seemingly unremarkable staff and a pair of worn cloth shoes. At last, a staff had emerged. Clad in the Crocodile King leather armor, a bronze piece, his defensive capabilities were secure. Yet, his weapon remained a mere plain staff. The inky black one scavenged near Shallow Water Bay. It had been a long time since he had wielded it. Had it not been for his full investment in magic power, he would struggle to breach even the defenses of wild creatures. Eagerly, Lu Yu clicked to inspect the staff's attributes. Wind Whispering Staff, bronze, level, 15 magic power, 150 critical hit, 1 attack speed, 5 trait, mastery, reduces the user's level requirement by 5. Description: in the Eastern Sea, the wind sings. Each attack has a chance to generate a gentle breeze, restoring 100 health points to allied targets. This bronze-tier staff provided a magic power boost greater than the attribute enhancement Lu Yu received upon reaching level 10. Additionally, it came with an accompanying skill. Although the game indicated that matters of chance were often calculated in minuscule fractions, without hesitation, Lu Yu replaced the inky black staff with the wind-whispering staff, his magic power soaring close to the 300 mark. Huzzah! Had I possessed that equipment earlier, I might have been able to single-handedly defeat the Goblin General in our duel. Ahem, just jesting. In terms of skill, Lu Yu was unperturbed. However, the Goblin General's suction attack was exceedingly repulsive, rendering any maneuvering futile, as one could only be drawn in and subjected to his blades. As for the original pitch-black staff, Lu Yu promptly discarded it onto the trading platform, setting the selling price at a mere 1 gold coin. Though it may seem to be a mere whiteboard item in the realm of trading, it was indeed the most marketable. With less than 2 days since the server launch, anyone possessing several whiteboard items could stride through the novice village with great confidence. In under 30 seconds, the pitch-black staff was snatched up. On the trading platform, Lu Yu had 2 additional pieces of equipment. The Ring of the Blue Abyss, dropped by the Blackwater Giant Python, which caused the user to lose 10 health points per second, had already gone unsold. While there may be players who are easily swindled, not everyone falls into that category. The adverse effects of the Ring of the Blue Abyss were too significant, and the toxic effects were unclear to many, making its lack of bidders entirely predictable. The other item was the Black Iron Machete, dropped by Lier. Lu Yu had set this machete for bidding solely in gold coins. During the early stages of the game, players had limited gold and needed to purchase potions as well. The price for this machete had yet to exceed 500 gold coins, which was exceedingly low for a black iron item. However, Lu Yu was not in a hurry, as there were still several hours left until the auction concluded, and the major guilds had not yet placed their bids. Although the primary forces of the large guilds had largely progressed to the second-level main city, black iron items were notoriously difficult to acquire, especially the coveted warrior-class weapons. Lu Yu then picked up the second piece of equipment, a pair of antiquated cloth shoes that appeared as if they had been discarded in a trash bin. Yet, how could an item dropped by a bronze-level boss be so mundane? Blind drifter shoes, whiteboard item, speed. One description, allegedly the favored footwear of drifters, capable of traversing mountains and rivers. No place is beyond their reach. Holding the shoes, Lu Yu pondered for a moment. I retract my previous statements. These shoes are indeed quite ordinary. Not just ordinary, they are positively worthless. The blind drifter shoes. One might as well say they are the shoes worn by street urchins, rather than using the phrase allegedly. If a primary school student were to see them, they might genuinely believe these shoes possessed some remarkable ability. A bronze-level boss dropping such a whiteboard item is frankly embarrassing. Lu Yu continued to ridicule internally, but nonetheless slipped them onto his feet. After all, even a mosquito's leg, though small, is still meat. What choice did he have, given that he currently possessed only 2 pieces of equipment? Lu Yu had longed to voice his complaints. He had cleared the shallow water bay 2 or 3 times and thoroughly explored the goblin nest. Even with the lowest drop rates, he should have been able to gather a full set of equipment by now. However, apart from the shallow water crocodile set obtained at the very beginning, the ordinary wild monsters have not yielded any additional equipment. The few items he did acquire were all from boss-level creatures, including the worthless by Luo ring and the blind flow boots. Lu Yu harbored deep suspicions that he might be targeted by the abyss. After examining the 2 pieces of equipment, he picked up the last skill book. Skills are even rarer drops than equipment. A player can learn a limited number of skills from their mentor, yet the skill slots available to a player are boundless. While having more skills does not necessarily equate to greater strength, players with a plethora of skills certainly possess a wider scope for survival. Currently, Lu Yu possessed only one skill, Shadow Clone Technique, and it was this very skill that had enabled him to escape perilous situations multiple times. He opened the purple skill book, and 4 prominent characters caught his eye. Warhorn. Warhorn, skill description. Sound the Warhorn to grant a buff to friendly units while inflicting a debuff on enemy units. The effect scales with skill level. This is the group buff skill of the Goblin General. It was this skill that significantly diminished the attributes of Lu Yu's summoned goblins, preventing the goblin archers from breaching the defenses of the Imperial Guards, forcing Lu Yu into a desperate 2-line operation. However, the Goblin General's skill only affects goblin units upon use. Yet, judging by the skill's description, the effect extends beyond goblins, impacting all friendly units, including goblins. Lu Yu promptly clicked to learn the skill, causing the skill book to vanish and adding the Warhorn skill to his skill bar. Warhorn effect. Sound the horn, increasing all attributes of friendly units by 5 and decreasing all attributes of enemy units by 1, lasting for 5 minutes. Cooldown, 5 minutes. Cost, 500 mana. Proficiency, 0-1000. It truly affects all units. Lu Yu was overjoyed. This skill seemed tailor-made for him. Although a buff of May 5th seemed modest, Lu Yu had a multitude of summoned beasts. Each summoned creature would receive a boost of 5. 100 creatures would result in a total of 500, and 1,000 would amount to 5,000. This was merely the effect at 1 star. As proficiency increases and skill level rises, the effect would only amplify. At the very least, it could achieve an effect akin to that of the Goblin General at level 50. Furthermore, the duration of the skill matched its cooldown, which meant that as long as he had mana, his summoned beasts could maintain the buff indefinitely. Ha ha ha. Liu Yu could not help but throw his head back in laughter. However, a private message suddenly interrupted his mirth. Big boss, are you there? I miss you so much. My dad wants to add you as a friend. Chapter 37. The Foundation Order. Judging by the address and tone, Liu Yu needed no further guesswork to identify the sender. There could be no other than that unworldly individual. The father, a person of unassuming demeanor and the leader of the Champion Alliance, possesses vast wealth, ranking among the richest in the world, and is destined to become one of humanity's prominent figures. What need does such an individual have to add me as a friend? Liu Yu furrowed his brows, only to quickly relax, suddenly enlightened. Esteemed leader, may I inquire if you wish to add my father as a friend? If you decline, I shall inform him to take his leave. Liu Yu mused. Do these two truly require a paternity test? Please provide my contact information to your father, he added. It is essential to give due respect to the wealthiest individual, especially one who has sacrificed for the protection of humanity. A system notification chimed. Player, champion. Guohua, requests to add you as a friend. Accept? Yes. An avatar of a middle-aged man, framed by a red national flag, appeared in Liu Yu's friend list. Greetings. Qingjiu. I am Du Xiaoqian, or rather, the father of the unassuming one, Du Guohua. You may call me Uncle Guohua. I've heard from Qianer that you have been guiding him in the novice village. Without your assistance, he would not have transitioned to the secondary main city so swiftly. I am immensely grateful. Du Guohua's tone was warm and approachable, devoid of the aloofness often associated with those of high status, yet it carried an undeniable gravity. Uncle Guohua, you flatter me. The unassuming one has compensated me for my guidance. My assistance in the novice village was merely a transaction. No, dear child, you are yet unaware of the game's significance. Facilitating Qianer's earlier entry into the main city is of profound importance to him. Both Qianer and I owe you a debt of gratitude. Indeed, I am acutely aware of the game's significance, Liu Yu silently reflected. Sensing that Du Guohua seemed to grasp the existence of the abyss. I see you remain in the novice village. Have you encountered any challenges? Given your capabilities, the issues you face cannot be trivial. If there is anything I can assist you with, do not hesitate to ask. Uncle Guohua, I am facing some difficulties, yet I can manage on my own. Did you add me for a specific reason? Indeed, there is something I would like to trouble you with. Du Guohua paused before continuing. I noticed the system announcement regarding your first kill of a bronze-level boss, which yielded a guild establishment order. Might it be possible for you to sell it to the Champion Alliance? Liu Yu smiled faintly, confirming his suspicions. It was indeed the guild establishment order that had drawn Du Guohua's interest. The order in Liu Yu's possession was undoubtedly the first and only one within the game. To ordinary players, the guild establishment order may seem like mere scrap, yet to prominent guilds, it is a treasure beyond measure. Even a traditional courtyard house within the second ring of the capital would not suffice for its exchange. Major factions would not hesitate to trade for it. The first guild to be formally established would not only have more time to develop compared to its competitors, but would also attract a wealth of talent, a factor of utmost importance to top-tier guilds. Du Guohua noticed that Liu Yu remained silent and continued. Rest assured, Qingjiu, I am fully aware of the value of this guild establishment order, and I would never allow you to suffer a loss. I possess an office building in the financial center of Shanghai, the worth of which is beyond question. If you are willing, I can offer it in exchange. However, should you place your trust in me, I can provide you with something even more valuable. Something of greater worth? Qingjiu, if you consent to sell this guild establishment order to our Champion Alliance, from the moment the alliance is officially formed, you will be its most esteemed benefactor. You will have the privilege of selecting items from the gang's warehouse, and should you find yourself in peril within the game, the Champion Alliance will spare no effort to rescue you. This is my utmost sincerity. Liu Yu nodded. For an ordinary person, an office building in the Shanghai Financial Center would suffice for several generations of comfortable living. Yet, Liu Yu understood that the second condition was far more significant. Du Guohua's willingness to offer such a price indicated that he genuinely sought an equitable exchange rather than exploiting Liu Yu. Unfortunately, Liu Yu had no intention of selling this guild establishment order. In his previous life, he would have undoubtedly relinquished the order without hesitation in exchange for the protection of the Champion Alliance. However, after enduring countless wars against foreign races, Liu Yu recognized the fragility of individual power. To ensure the survival of the entire human race, he must establish his own influence. No one comprehended the nature of such an influence better than Liu Yu himself, not even Du Guohua, who would later become one of the leaders of the human race. Uncle Guohua, your offer has exceeded my expectations. However, I regret to inform you that I do not wish to sell this guild establishment order. Du Guohua momentarily displayed signs of urgency, but quickly regained his composure. Qingjiu, has someone offered a higher price before me? If that is the case, I am willing to double that amount. We can engage a professional witness team to formalize everything in writing. Uncle Guohua, I trust in your competence and credibility, and I understand the significance of your second offer. Nevertheless, I intend to use this guild establishment order for myself. For your own use? Du Guohua clearly did not anticipate this response. After a prolonged silence, he finally replied, the youth truly bears the makings of a hero. Young brother Qingjiu. Since you wish to use it for yourself, I shall not press further. However, should you manage to acquire a second guild establishment order, please prioritize selling it to me. I assure you that you will not suffer any loss. Thank you for your understanding, Uncle Guohua. If I obtain a second one, I will give it to you directly. Please refrain from calling me uncle. It makes me feel as though I am already in my twilight years. From now on, call me Brother Hua. After our conversation, I feel as though we are old friends. Lu Yu replied, but you were the one who asked me to call you Uncle Guohua just moments ago. And besides, I am nearly the same age as your son. Is that really appropriate? Very well, Brother Hua. Ha ha ha, dear Sake. Hasten to complete the matters in the novice village and join me in the secondary main city. We shall indulge in revelry together. Very well, Brother Hua. I shall see you in the secondary main city. Duke Guohua's avatar dimmed, indicating he had logged off. Lu Yu opened the chat with a moniker Untroubled by the World and sent his final few words. The silence from Untroubled by the World lingered. Chapter 38. The pursued old village chief to establish a guild. Acquiring the guild token is the most formidable of all requirements. In addition, one must possess 10,000 gold coins and 100,000 reputation points. The gold coins are manageable, yet the reputation points are notoriously difficult to amass, and players cannot trade them amongst themselves. Lu Yu currently holds less than 20,000 reputation points, of which 15,000 were obtained from recently slaying a bronze-level boss. Lu Yu rummaged through his backpack and retrieved the guild token, a bronze medallion steeped in nostalgia. The reverse side bore the character for gang, while the front was inscribed with the character for order, albeit in a somewhat disarrayed manner. Guild token, special item, description, command the world, unite the heroes, as smoke rises. Become the champion of the age. This token can be used to establish a guild. Lu Yu carefully stowed the token away, for it is indeed a treasure of immense value. After organizing his items, Lu Yu opened his summoning space, where a formidable entity awaited him. Goblin General, bronze-level boss, health, 300,000 attack, 2,000 defense, 1,800 skills, all-encompassing, war horn, summon thousands. Invincible body. Lu Yu widened his eyes slightly, realizing that even the most powerful summoned creature would be dispatched in mere moments before the Goblin General. With such a high attack power, enduring even a single blow would grant him dominance in the novice village. The skill all-encompassing likely allows the Goblin General to exert a vacuum-like pull. However, this formidable boss now belonged to Lu Yu. He summoned the Goblin General, and a towering figure of over 5 meters materialized before him, exuding an aura of intimidation. Lu Yu regarded the Goblin General solemnly, remaining silent. As if sensing something, the Goblin General immediately knelt on one knee, bowing before Lu Yu. Even in this position, his stature was still twice that of Lu Yu. Yet, from a distance, the distinction between master and servant was unmistakable. Lu Yu raised his hand, signaling him to rise. The Goblin General possessed a modicum of independent awareness, though it was marginally superior to that of the Crocodile King and the Blackwater Giant Python. Compared to Li Er and Widow Wong, he resembled a fool with an intelligence quotient below 100. Nevertheless, this led Lu Yu to speculate that the higher the level of the boss, the greater the autonomy of their intellect upon being summoned. Possessing independent consciousness is indeed a commendable trait. They do not mechanically execute Lu Yu's commands, but rather make judgments based on the circumstances, thereby cultivating their unique combat styles. This significantly reduces Lu Yu's operational costs. The spoils from vanquishing the Goblin General have all been accounted for, and upon surveying the surroundings, Lu Yu sensed subtle changes in the atmosphere following the general's demise. He meticulously searched the Grand Hall once more, regrettably finding nothing of interest. It was astonishing that such a formidable bronze-level boss did not conceal even a single treasure chest, merely sitting here waiting for others to confront him. What was the purpose of that? Having confirmed that there was no bounty to be found, Lu Yu departed from the boss room. He then spent several hours exploring the goblin lair, replenishing the goblin archers and assassins he had previously lost. He even made a special trip to the breeding nest to summon back the 3 giant goblin beasts into his conjuring space, with the Goblin General present. Traversing this path was a mere stroll. Even the act of slaying the 3 giant goblins was effortlessly concluded by the general with just a couple of strikes. Consequently, the goblin lair had been utterly emptied. Lu Yu crushed the map and reappeared outside the lair. It was now evening, and the 2 villagers who had been guarding the entrance were nowhere to be found. The sunset forest lay in silence, illuminated solely by the radiant moon overhead. Suddenly, a sharp whistling sound pierced the air as an arrow zipped past Lu Yu, darting into the nearby underbrush. Ouch! Ouch! I've been shot. A disheveled voice emerged from the thicket, an arrow protruding from his rear. Old villager, what are you doing here? The figure emerging from the foliage was none other than the old villager who had tasked Lu Yu with stealing the widow's handkerchief. I was waiting for you, the old man exclaimed, his face beaming with an enthusiastic smile while his gaze flitted nervously. Waiting for me? Lu Yu scrutinized the old man's demeanor, his brow furrowing. What could you possibly want from me, old man? I just witnessed you nearly being shot. Ah well. Before the old villager could provide an explanation, a group of people burst forth from the woods. That old rascal is over there. Do not let him escape. One shouted. The village elder said he is seeking adventurers to help him fell our guardian tree. Who is that standing next to him? Surely, he must be the adventurer he sought. Absolutely. I recognize that adventurer. He was the one who, alongside that old man, stole the widow's underwear last time, resulting in both of their captures. Hey. I distinctly had a handkerchief at that time. How did it morph into underwear? Furthermore, that widow is not even human. She is a goblin. Arrows began to rain down upon Lu Yu, accompanied by a throng of villagers wielding shovels, hoes, and kitchen knives, all poised to confront him with fervor. One must avoid conflict with the villagers. Although the goblin general poses a threat, Lu Yu remains unperturbed. However, should he slay a significant number of human NPCs, he would incur the Empire's wrath, making it impossible for him to enter even the secondary main city. Old man, hurry up. Lu Yu turned around only to find the elderly village chief had already sprinted several dozen meters ahead. Damn, that old fellow. Lu Yu hastily pursued. But given the chief's advanced age, he found it challenging to catch up. Fortunately, the villagers, being primarily engaged in production, were not adept in combat. After a brief chase, Lu Yu managed to distance himself from them. He plopped down on a tree stump, gasping for breath. Seeing he had lost the pursuing villagers, the old chief returned and approached Lu Yu. Young man, are you injured? He inquired with genuine concern. I cannot fathom why they suddenly sought to harm me. At my age, I can hardly run. Lu Yu shot a sideways glance at the old chief. Are you truly unaware of their intentions to harm you? They made their motives perfectly clear. Do you take me for a fool? Just moments ago, you were darting about as if you were sprightly, and despite my desperate efforts, I could scarcely keep pace with you. From what I gathered, the villagers have banded together upon discovering your desire to fell the Treant boss. Consequently, as the recipient of this task, I have been inadvertently implicated. The old chief disregarded Lu Yu's glare and continued with his inquiries. So, when you fought the goblin general, you were not injured, were you? The mere mention of the topic ignited Lu Yu's ire. Old man, are you deliberately sending me to my doom by asking me to slay the goblin general? Young man, how could that be? You know my character well. Precisely because I know your character, I suspect you wish to lead me to my demise. The old chief countered, you expect me, a level 10 man with only 2 pieces of equipment, to confront a level 30 bronze boss? Are you suggesting that you want me to perish there, thereby relieving yourself of the obligation to reward me for the task? Goodness, how could you say such things? Am I truly that kind of person? Very well. Eliminate the last of the 4 pests, and I shall consider your task complete. The system prompted, your chain quest has changed. Task requirement, eliminate the millennial Treant to the west of the village. Task reward, restoration spell. Task penalty, unknown. Wait, Lu Yu was taken aback. Why has this old man suddenly become so benevolent? Something feels amiss. There is often a hidden motive behind such unusual behavior. Observing the kind-hearted visage of the old chief only heightened Lu Yu's suspicions. Had something transpired in the village since his entry into the goblin den? Old man, what are you scheming? What do you mean by scheming? Young man, even if you do not trust me, you must believe the system prompt. Lu Yu nodded, acknowledging the system's prompt as undeniably genuine. However, this only heightened his unease. He promptly accessed the official forum to investigate the current state of the 12315 novice village. Instantly, a plethora of posts appeared, revealing that the 12315 novice village had become the focal point of the entire network. The most popular among them was a video by Zayaya. Dear friends, Zayaya is back. Today, I bring you the latest news from the 12,315 novice village. Shortly after the system announcement about the player Qingshu's solo victory over a bronze-level boss, the villagers of 12,315 novice village began to exhibit unusual behavior. They first expelled the former village chief and then gathered spontaneously beneath the great tree located on the west side of the village. While this tree was perceived by players as a black iron-level boss, it was also regarded as the guardian spirit of the novice village, believed to bless it with favorable weather and bountiful harvests. Zayaya discovered that the villagers had congregated there to protect their sacred tree from someone intending to cut it down. Who could possibly want to fell their revered tree? Perhaps the village chief held the answer. Engaging in dialogue with the village chief of 12,315 novice village would unlock a community quest to eliminate the old village chief and the adventurer Qingshu. The quest reward remained a bronze artifact. All suspicions pointed once again towards our prominent figure, Qingshu. Speaking of Qingshu, those who frequently watch my videos ought to be familiar with him. Lu Yu promptly turned off the video, silently observing the old village chief. It was no wonder the quest had been altered. He had unwittingly become the target of a village-wide manhunt. What a predicament. Not only would entering the secondary main city be a challenge, but survival within the novice village itself was now in question. This old man was utterly unreliable. Why would he handle the matter of the sacred tree so carelessly, ensuring that the entire village was aware of it? Now, it was impossible to approach the ancient tree spirit, let alone fell the tree. I must quickly acquire the restoration spell, should the old man perish. All my efforts would be in vain. Old man, I will assist in eliminating the ancient tree spirit, but you must first grant me the restoration spell. No. The old village chief vehemently shook his head, resembling a bobblehead. If I give you the restoration spell now, What if you refuse to confront the tree spirit? If you do not provide it, I will not aid you in slaying the tree spirit. If you refuse to confront the tree spirit, my quest remains unfulfilled, and I shall ensure you cannot leave the novice village. If you prevent my departure from the novice village, I shall hand you over to the villagers. They will take care of you, and the quest will be automatically cancelled. If you hand me over to the villagers, the old village chief pointed a finger at Lu Yu, momentarily at a loss for words. Then, shifting his tone, he began to play the emotional card. Young man, you cannot act this way. Look at me, an elderly recluse. My tireless efforts are for what purpose, if not for the sake of our village? Young man, you are unaware of the calamity that has befallen our village under the current village chief's mismanagement. If the four pests are not eradicated soon, our novice village is doomed. Who can ascertain your genuine intentions for the village? I merely seek the restoration spell. Grant me that, and I shall vanquish the tree spirit for you. I was once a village chief myself. How could I ever engage in actions that harm the village? The old chief's anxiety became apparent. Young hero of the novice village, please assist this old man. If you defeat the tree spirit, I shall certainly provide you with the skill book. My badge of the novice village hero has long since expired. Lu Yu cast a sidelong glance at the old chief. For it expired due to the tasks I undertook for you. The old chief raised his chin. Isn't it simply a matter of reinstating the badge's validity? How difficult could that be? Upon finishing his words, he reached out and rubbed the badge on Lu Yu's chest. The badge, which had lost its luster, now shimmered anew. System prompt. Your badge, Novice Village Hero, has been activated, valid for 24 hours. It truly has been restored. This old man possesses some skill. However, old chief, why do you only grant this badge a 24-hour validity? Could you not extend it? Such stinginess. Once you eliminate the tree spirit, I shall make it permanently valid. Lu Yu scoffed. You can only bestow a 24-hour validity, can't you? Cough. The old chief's face flushed, but he quickly regained his haughty demeanor. Now you can proceed to eliminate the tree spirit. No. Lu Yu resolutely shook his head. Unless you grant me the restoration spell, I will not fell any trees. You. The old chief gritted his teeth. I have already restored your badge's effect. Our agreement regarding task rewards was not merely about the badge's effect. I am being hunted by the entire village. What use is this minor attribute boost? Lu Yu shrugged, embodying a stance of refusal to undertake the task unless he received the restoration spell. Old man, you don't truly lack the restoration spell, do you? How could I possibly lack the restoration spell? It's just that. Just what? Lu Yu abruptly stood, sensing that the old chief's hesitation concealed something significant. It's just that the restoration spell is not currently in my possession. Then where is it? It is with the 1,000-year tree spirit. Defeat that spirit, and it will drop the restoration spell. Lu Yu pondered. So, I must eliminate this 1,000-year tree spirit. If I do not, I shall not acquire the restoration spell. Is that the implication? The old chief, with a gentle expression and sincere nod, confirmed. Lu Yu felt an urge to summon the goblin general and deliver a couple of strikes to this old fellow. Ultimately, it seemed he would have to oppose the entirety of the novice village. Based on Lu Yu's understanding of the 1,000-year tree spirit, it appeared that the old chief was not lying this time. The tree spirit's offensive and defensive capabilities were rather average, yet it had remained unconquered by players due to its formidable health and regenerative abilities. Now, with the protection of the villagers and the player's focus, it would be even more challenging to defeat. In the village, there are few skilled fighters, yet every combat-capable villager is at least equivalent to a level 20 black iron boss. Furthermore, there is the village chief, who, as the leader of the community, has likely attained the rank of bronze, with dozens of black iron bosses and at least one bronze boss. Lu Yu shook his head and glanced at the old village chief. Old man, it was you who wanted to eliminate that tree demon. Surely, you have a way to deal with those villagers? Of course I do. The village chief replied with a smile. And what might that be? Lu Yu inquired. My solution, naturally, is you. Lu Yu thought to himself that he could not rely on this old fellow. He was as unreliable as ever. He examined his skills, the summoning space, and the equipment he possessed. These comprised his entire strength. He not only needed to fend off the villagers, but also devise a plan to eliminate the tree spirit. It was a daunting task. However, it seemed not entirely insurmountable. Ah, young man. The village chief suddenly spoke again. There is one more matter. What is it? Lu Yu shot an impatient glance at the old chief, wondering what trick he was up to now. The shallow water crocodile king and the black water giant python are no longer within your summoning space, are they? You must go and retrieve them. Retrieve them again? Lu Yu acknowledged the necessity, recalling that the village chief had indeed mentioned the need for their complete resolution. 2 level 10 black iron bosses could provide considerable combat strength, especially the black water giant python's venom effect, which would be crucial in dealing with the Millennium Tree Spirit. As Lu Yu pondered this, a cacophony erupted from the surrounding woods. I just saw it. It's right here. Surround this area. We must not let Qingzhou escape. At that moment, several hundred players emerged from the forest, encircling Lu Yu and the village chief. The village chief glanced at Lu Yu. Young man, it seems they are coming for you. This isn't me causing you trouble. Lu Yu shot a sidelong glance at the village chief. They are not after me. They seek the bronze artifact. Upon noticing the village chief, one player exclaimed in surprise, How is there a village chief here? This is the old village chief. Ignore him. Our target is solely Qingjiu. Old man, you better scram and not be a nuisance here. All right then, adventurers, you carry on. The village chief nodded promptly and slipped away from the players. What an old rascal. Lu Yu cursed inwardly and then turned his attention to the leading players, whose IDs were fist-punching the elderly home, kicking the kindergarten, and Knight kicking the widow's door. Those names sound somewhat familiar. I feel like I've seen them before. Qingjiu, didn't expect to see you again. Fist-punching the elderly home declared. Who are you? Lu Yu asked. Kicking the kindergarten replied. You killed the three of us for no reason in the Blackwater Marsh. Today we have come for revenge. Oh, I see now. Lu Yu suddenly enlightened. You are the three who originally intended to slay me and seize my equipment, only to be turned against by my own hand. Yi Chai Guofu Min, we are not mere things. No, we are indeed things. Lu Yu, what are you? Yi Chai Guofu Min, we are. Fist of the elderly home interjected. Old three, stop dancing around him. Qingjiu, cease with your clever words. We have come here today to take your head in exchange for bronze equipment. Be wise and stand still. If we must each strike you once, otherwise. Otherwise what? Lu Yu said, gesturing with one hand. A towering figure, over 5 meters tall and wielding a long blade, appeared by Lu Yu's side. It was the Goblin General. Lu Yu kindly displayed the attributes of the Goblin General. After all, being a level 30 boss, these level 6 and 7 players might not grasp its significance. The moment the Goblin General emerged, the air around them fell silent. This was a level 30 bronze boss. We are not blind. We need not be told. How could it be here? It turns out the rumors on the forum were true. Qingjiu can indeed summon the monsters he has slain. This bronze boss must be the one he defeated during the day. Immediately, dozens of players quietly withdrew from the group, deciding not to wade into this murky water. Among the remaining players, many began to waver. The most troubled were the three from the elderly home, who now regretted their earlier bravado. They had thought Qingjiu's ability to summon monsters was merely a rumor, only to find it was indeed a reality. Yet, having already declared their intentions, they could not now beg for mercy, claiming ignorance. They could only forge ahead with grim determination. Fist of the elderly home proclaimed, brothers, he has but one summoned beast. Yet we number in the hundreds. However formidable this boss may be, it cannot possibly eliminate us all. Foot kicker of kindergarten echoed. Yes, once we deal with Qingjiu, this boss will surely fall as well. This is a bronze-level boss, capable of dropping bronze equipment. Qingjiu possesses at least 2 pieces of bronze equipment, and with the bronze gear from the village chief's quest, that guarantees at least 4 pieces. Who secures these 4 pieces of bronze equipment will depend on their own prowess. The allure of bronze equipment was evidently immense. Hearing Fist of the elderly home's words, the previously hesitant players redirected their gaze towards Lu Yu. Lu Yu regarded these players with a calm demeanor. He was in no rush to eliminate the ancient tree spirit, as time was ample. Fist of the elderly home continued to incite. Brothers, if we die, we merely lose a level, but if we obtain a piece of bronze equipment, we can stride through the entire novice village with pride. What are we waiting for? Kill! Kill! With those words, Fist of the elderly home charged first towards Lu Yu. As other players surged forward, the arrows of the archers and the spells of the mages descended upon Lu Yu. A series of ones erupted above his head, and all the players in the rear transformed into gray names. Excellent. The Goblin General clenched his left fist, unleashing a tremendous gravitational pull upon the players at the back. Even the mighty beast goblins could hardly withstand such force. How could these fragile classes hope to resist? In an instant, hundreds of players were yanked into the air. With a sweeping motion of his blade, the Goblin General unleashed a torrent of blood mist that erupted in the atmosphere. A casual stroke of his sword obliterated over 100 players. Chapter 41. The catastrophe blood splattered onto the frontline warriors, causing everyone to halt abruptly, their eyes wide with disbelief as they gazed back. Chunks of flesh rained down from the sky, crashing onto the players. The sound of gulping saliva was distinctly audible. Having played the game to this point, the players had witnessed their share of gruesome scenes, especially the warrior players, who had experienced the visceral thrill of battles since their encounters with the big-eared rabbit. Yet, this sight rendered them speechless, mouths agape. Was this a scene that should be witnessed by their compatriots? If it were displayed on screen, even if it were not censored, it would at least warrant a black and white treatment. With a gritted jaw, the player known as Fist of the Elderly summoned his courage and shouted, "What is there to fear? At worst, we die once. Brothers, charge on." However, this time, no player responded to him. Before he could finish his sentence, hundreds of players scattered in panic. It wasn't merely about 4 pieces of bronze equipment. Even if there were 40 or 400, one needed to survive to claim them. The damage inflicted by this boss was insurmountable. Charging and headlong was futile, bronze gear was surely out of reach, and one might even lose their existing equipment. In an instant, the open ground was left with only Fist of the Elderly and his 2 companions, along with the slowly dissipating corpses on the ground. The 3 exchanged glances and immediately dashed in different directions. Just as they turned to flee, figures suddenly materialized out of thin air, encircling them. Fist of the Elderly laboriously turned to Lu Yu and said, "Brother Qingjiu, I believe this may be a misunderstanding. There is no misunderstanding. You made your intentions clear just now, seeking my head in exchange for a few bronze pieces. Lu Yu waved his hand dismissively. Unfortunately, you are not my match. Brother Qingjiu, we were wrong. From now on, we will follow you. Wherever you lead us, we shall not stray. If you command us to hunt dogs, we will not pursue chickens, they pleaded. Yes, yes, Brother Qingjiu, you shall be our leader from now on. Do you think I lack for underlings? Lu Yu pointed toward the myriad of summoned creatures surrounding them, each with formidable attack, defense, health, and skills. What do you believe you possess that could rival them? The three men were left speechless. Surrounding him were summoned creatures, the weakest of which was a level 10 shallow water crocodile. In contrast, the three of them were all merely level 8. With a casual summoning, Lu Yu could easily conjure a creature capable of overpowering them collectively. Thus, I kindly request that you three meet your demise. Qingjiu, I shall challenge you. As he suddenly surged forward, fists raised against the retirement home. The goblin general's long knife had already struck him down. Simultaneously, the assaults on the kindergarten and the widow's abode were effortlessly dealt with by the goblin assassin. Lu Yu picked up the staff dropped by the widow's abode, truly a piece of black iron equipment. He had previously lamented not acquiring it in the Blackwater Marsh. Now, although the equipment had finally appeared, he had already obtained superior weapons. Why, oh why, do you three lack memory? Lu Yu tossed the staff onto the trading platform, still permitting only gold bids. The previously listed cleaver of Lier had been sold for 500 gold coins. The buyer's identity was concealed, yet anyone capable of amassing such a sum surely had a powerful guild backing them. Lu Yu was indifferent to the buyer's identity. All he cared about was receiving the gold. After deducting the 10 transaction fee, a total of 250 gold coins were credited to his account. With the gold acquired from defeating monsters, his balance had now surpassed 5,000 coins. While 5,000 coins may seem substantial, in the wake of the abyssal descent, it was akin to having 5,000 yuan in reality. Numerous future expenditures awaited him, and the path ahead was fraught with challenges. System notification. You have received an external phone call request. Do you wish to answer? It was Qingjiu calling. Lu Yu clicked the answer button. Brother Yu, you've been online for over a day. Come out and take a break. Let us go grab something delicious. Lu Yu glanced at the time, realizing that from yesterday noon until now, it had been over a day and a half. In the advanced gaming pod, one need not consider basic necessities, and his mind had been in a semi-dormant state, causing him to lose track of time. With the respawn of the Blackwater Python still some time away and little to do in the novice village, he decided to log off for a bite to eat. Just a moment, I'll log off shortly. Currently, Lu Yu was in a wanted status. Returning to the novice village's safe zone to log off was out of the question. He summoned all his summoned beasts, and with the goblin general standing guard. Even if the village chief approached with the villagers, they would struggle to reach him for a while. Satisfied, Lu Yu nodded and clicked the exit button. Stepping out of the gaming pod, Qingjiu had long awaited him in the living room. Brother Yu, you finally logged off. Let us go eat. It's on me. Qingjiu wore an expression of smugness, as if proclaiming his wealth for all to see. All right, I'll just get dressed. Lu Yu maintained his composure, unaffected by the display. Brother Yu, have you entered the secondary main city yet? Not yet. I am currently at level 7. Still in the novice village. Oh dear, still in the novice village. Qingjiu beamed with delight, his cherubic face sporting a triumphant expression that was utterly infuriating. Let us dine at Tianranju tonight. You promised to treat me. Sure, but don't you want to ask where I am first? Qingjiu's face was alight with anticipation. Not at all. Lu Yu coldly rejected him and pushed open the door, heading downstairs. Do I not know you? I stumbled upon a severely injured black iron level boss, which dropped 2 black iron items. I used one and sold the other. And I just entered the secondary main city half an hour ago. Seeing Lu Yu leave, Qingjiu hurriedly chased after him. Brother Yu, don't you really want to know? Not at all. Lu Yu resolutely denied him the satisfaction. The two exited the apartment building, with Tianranju located directly across the street. Standing at the intersection, they could clearly see the couplets adorning the entrance. Guests at Tianranju, heavenly guests indeed. It was the city's most upscale restaurant. And it was said that even setting foot inside required an expenditure of 2,000 yuan. Never mind, I'll tell you willingly. Qingjiu could no longer contain his desire to share. The light is green, let's south cross the road. Lu Yu strode onto the pedestrian crossing, with Qingjiu closely following. Suddenly, a white refrigerated truck sped through the red light, barreling towards Lu Yu at breakneck speed, mere meters away in an instant. Qingjiu suddenly saw the oncoming vehicle rush towards Lu Yu. Brother Yu, watch out. Chapter 42, Huan Bureau Bang. A figure was hurled several meters away, leaving a trail of blood on the road. The truck failed to brake, careening wildly into a lamppost before finally coming to a halt. Bamboo. Lu Yu gasped in shock. Everything had transpired too swiftly. He only heard Bamboo's warning and was thrust aside. In the next moment, the truck had surged past his previous position, sending Qingjiu flying. Lu Yu sprinted to Qingjiu's side, blood staining the pavement beneath him crimson. There's a pulse, there's a heartbeat, he murmured. Bamboo, hold on. Lu Yu immediately dialed for emergency assistance. Outside the operating room, Lu Yu anxiously awaited news. The surgery had already lasted 6 hours, with the rescue lights still aglow. The doctor spoke plainly, indicating that the chances of survival were slim. Even if he were saved, it was likely that he would spend the rest of his life confined to a bed. When the truck driver was dragged from the vehicle by the traffic police, he reeked of alcohol, thoroughly intoxicated. This was a clear case of drunk driving. The facts were evident, the case straightforward. Yet, Lu Yu found it exceedingly puzzling. When he and Bamboo had departed, it was still not yet 6 o'clock. Who would be drinking so early in the morning? Moreover, intoxicated to the point of inebriation, he recklessly maneuvered an empty truck through the bustling streets of the city. Instinctively, Lu Yu sensed that this vehicle was undoubtedly targeting him. Had it not been for Zhu Zi's timely intervention, he would now be the one lying in the operating room. A middle-aged man approached, flanked by 2 burly figures clad in suits and dark sunglasses. "Good day, may I inquire if you are Lu Yu?" "I am. And you are?" Lu Yu immediately heightened his vigilance. This was reality, not a game. In a game, he possessed the confidence to confront any adversary, yet in reality, he was merely an ordinary man with a slight paunch and mild fatty liver. The middle-aged man proactively extended a business card. "I am Li Wei, the director of the National Security Special Operations Office for Extraordinary Events and Crisis Response." "What sort of office is that? Is there no abbreviation?" "Hello, Director Li. What brings you here?" "Your friend and you were involved in an accident this morning, and we seek to ascertain the particulars." Upon hearing they were there regarding the accident, Lu Yu's impatience surged. He had previously emphasized the peculiar nature of the incident during his statement, yet the police had dismissed him as merely seeking additional compensation. "I have already provided the traffic police with a detailed account of the accident. You may refer to the report." "Mr. Lu Yu, we have reviewed the report. We are here to gather more nuanced details." "Nuanced details?" "Indeed. While the incident appears to be a straightforward case of drunk driving, do you not find it rather suspicious?" Lu Yu's eyes brightened. Finally, someone shared his perspective. However, when it came to specifics, he shook his head. He had not even noticed the approaching truck at the time of the incident, nor had he ever seen the driver. "Director Li, I too find this accident quite enigmatic. But all I can recall has already been conveyed to the police. It need not be fact. Share your speculations or feelings." "Feelings?" Lu Yu furrowed his brow. "My only sentiment is that this accident was no mere accident. It was deliberate, aimed directly at me." The middle-aged man shot a glance at the 2 burly men behind him, who promptly lowered their heads. "Thank you for your cooperation, Mr. Lu. We will assist with your friend's medical expenses." The middle-aged man turned to leave, but Lu Yu seized his arm. "Do you know something? Tell me." One of the burly men gently pulled Lu Yu aside, and the middle-aged man said nothing further, merely nodding at Lu Yu before departing. Lu Yu stared at the business card in his hand. "National Security Special Operations Office for Extraordinary Events and Crisis Response, Huan Bureau, Director Li Wei." Lu Yu's eyes widened in astonishment. The Huan Bureau. They are from the Huan Bureau. After the descent of the Abyss, a faction known as the Huan Alliance suddenly emerged. Initially, this guild remained obscure, with its members displaying a disinterest in player-versus-player combat, instead dedicating their time to leveling up, acquiring equipment, and fervently engaging in border tasks. Had it not been for the Alliance's remarkable and rapid growth, it is likely that few players would have even acknowledged its existence. However, 6 months later, the border barriers were breached, and human territories were swiftly overrun by alien races. The Huan Alliance was the first to rise, officially calling upon players to cease their internal conflicts and unite against external threats. The Huan Alliance was originally derived from an organization known as the Huan Bureau, which is said to have been established a month prior to the Abyss's arrival. Yet, it now appears that the formation of the Huan Bureau occurred far earlier than the rumors suggested. This implies a connection between the organization and the alien forces. Lu Yu's expression turned grave. Upon learning about the racial identities of Li Er and Widow Wang, he began to suspect that these alien entities had already begun to influence human society. However, he never anticipated that they would uncover his true identity and resort to lethal methods to eliminate him. Although he had detected their presence, he did not expect them to take such substantial risks. This incident could very well expose their methods of manipulating human society to the authorities, leading to their pursuit and eradication. Such a venture would undoubtedly be an unwise gamble, unless his life held extraordinary value. The operating room door swung open, and several doctors clad in white coats emerged. Lu Yu hurried over. "Doctor, how is my friend?" The doctor wiped the sweat from his brow. "He has pulled through the critical stage and will soon awaken, but I fear he may only be able to sit in a wheelchair for the remainder of his life." Lu Yu exhaled a sigh of relief. Preserving his friend's life was indeed a stroke of fortune. Clenching his fists tightly, he reflected that Zhu Zi had become paralyzed in order to save him. In his previous life, Zhu Zi had already saved him once, and he had secretly vowed that with the wisdom brought by the Abyss's arrival, he would fight against the alien races. Little did he know that even before the Abyss had fully descended, Zhu Zi had once again saved him. This debt must be repaid in blood by the alien races. In the hospital room, Lu Yu scoured forums for information regarding goblins, but the results yielded nothing but trivial game strategies. At present, those who knew the truth about the Abyss were few, and even fewer were aware of the alien invasion into reality. After searching for a considerable time without uncovering anything useful, He came across a video of Outyin, the chief player of the Outyin studio, single-handedly defeating a boss, which had gone viral. Although the boss was merely a level 10 Black Iron tier foe, it was sufficient to cause a stir at this stage. Meanwhile, Zhu Xiaochuan's profession had transformed into that of a nether envoy. Lu Yu's expression shifted. In his previous life, Zhu Xiaochuan had not taken on a hidden profession, indicating that many things had changed in this life. Suddenly, Chen Zhu's eyelids twitched. Lu Yu quickly set down his phone and sat beside Chen Zhu. Chen Zhu opened his eyes and gazed at Lu Yu, offering a faint smile. Brother Yu, I'm here. What do you wish to say? I haven't yet informed you that I've advanced to the secondary main city, while you remain in the novice village, you novice. In Chapter 43, The Millennium Tree Spirit, Lu Yu promptly rented a hospital room and moved 2 advanced gaming pods inside. Chen Zhu's injuries no longer posed a life-threatening risk, however. He required ongoing medication and hospitalization for observation. What could provide a more suitable healing environment than within a gaming pod? This technology is still far beyond human reach. The medication can synergize with the nutrient solution within the body, proving more effective than injections. Most importantly, although Chen Zhu was paralyzed in reality, it did not hinder his lively presence within the game. Upon learning of Lu Yu's actions, Chen Zhu wholeheartedly approved. Given Chen Zhu's disposition, lying still in a hospital bed would be far more unbearable than death. Moreover, having just entered the secondary main city, he was determined not to let other players catch up. The doctor also expressed support for this course of action, stipulating that Chen Zhu must undergo a daily checkup. Therefore, as soon as the gaming pod arrived, Chen Zhu eagerly settled in. Lu Yu felt a sense of helplessness towards his friend, who, despite having narrowly escaped death, awoke with such vigor. After ensuring Chen Zhu was comfortably situated in the gaming pod, night had already fallen. Lu Yu then stepped into his own gaming pod and logged in. His instincts told him that the novice village of 12,315 certainly harbored issues, with the root of the problems lying between the village chief and the old chief. Moreover, aside from Li Er and Widow Wang, there were likely other alien entities present. A flash of light enveloped him as Lu Yu emerged deep within the sunset forest. The in-game time mirrored reality, and the forest had now descended into night. The Goblin General stood attentively beside Lu Yu, diligently guarding his safety, while the other summoned beings remained in their designated positions. During Lu Yu's offline period, other players had attempted to test their luck, yet they had barely managed to defeat even the shallow water crocodiles before returning to the fountain empty-handed. Glancing at the summoning space, Lu Yu noted that Li Er and Widow Wang could be summoned again. They appeared unchanged, just as they had when they first entered the summoning space. Lu Yu was baffled by the fact that they could be summoned again after their demise, but he had no time to ponder this now. The effect of the Novice Village Hero badge was dwindling, with only a few hours remaining. He had to eliminate the Millennium Tree Spirit within this time frame. Regardless of the conspiracy within the Novice Village of 12,315, he needed to obtain the recovery spell. Lu Yu recalled his excess summoned beasts and headed straight for the Blackwater Marsh. The Shallow Water Crocodile King could be dealt with later. Capturing the Blackwater Giant Python was of utmost urgency. The Blackwater Marsh remained bustling with activity, with most players hovering around level 6. When the Goblin General made its grand entrance, a wave of commotion ensued. Look, what is that? It's enormous. That is a level 30 bronze tier boss. Why would such a formidable creature appear here? A figure stood atop the boss's shoulder. A bunch of fools, that's the esteemed sake master. What are we waiting for? Let us take him down and head to the village chief for gear. You can go ahead. I have no desire to court death. In a rush, Lu Yu abandoned the notion of walking and instead ascended to the Goblin General's shoulder. He disregarded the chattering players around him and made a beeline for the Blackwater pool. The colossal feet of the Goblin General sank into the swamp, causing radiant light to stream into Lu Yu's summoning space. A number of players were already leveling up near the Blackwater pool and, upon sighting Lu Yu, immediately donned expressions of caution. However, Lu Yu merely glided past them, heading straight for the depths of the pool. Silence enveloped the Blackwater pool, with not a single ripple disturbing its surface. Has it not respawned? Lu Yu checked the time once more, confirming it should indeed have resurfaced by now. Surely no one had preempted him? He summoned several black water snakes to delve into the depths, yet it remained eerily quiet beneath the surface, devoid of the black water python's presence. Without the python's toxic debuffs, the task of eliminating the ancient treant would become exponentially more challenging. Unwilling to concede, Lu Yu unleashed all the black water snakes from his summoning space, meticulously scouring the seabed inch by inch. At long last, one of the snakes unearthed a tightly coiled silhouette nestled in a corner. It was the black water python. The creature had concealed itself so thoroughly that not even its head was visible. Lu Yu recalled that during their last encounter, it had only begun to flee when its health was nearly depleted. A faint smile graced Lu Yu's lips. Perhaps in the past, it had eluded him while submerged. But now the situation was different. The Goblin General formed an imaginary grip with his left hand, generating an immense gravitational pull that enveloped the entire Blackwater pool. The waters began to quake violently, swiftly coalescing into a massive water spout. As the swirling vortex ascended, it drew up not only the pool's water but also a writhing figure. With a sweeping strike of his blade, the goblin general severed the black water python in two, sending its remains flying into Lu Yu's summoning space. Lu Yu extended his hand to summon the black water python, which emerged, flicking its tongue and gracefully coiling around him. Why the resistance earlier when you were destined to return? Having reclaimed the black water python, Lu Yu hastened towards the western side of the novice village. This area was notably less populated by players, as it lacked ordinary wild creatures and quests, featuring only a solitary tree that stood tall throughout the seasons. Had it not been for the villagers guarding this spot, most players would have overlooked the enormous tree, which was far too large for even a dozen individuals to encircle, and which happened to be one of the bosses of the novice village. The villagers gathered here had mostly dispersed, leaving only a handful of combat-oriented individuals to stand guard, preventing any covert acts of sabotage. When Lu Yu approached the ancient tree, the remaining villagers instantly became vigilant. The adventurer has arrived. Quickly, informed the village chief. Two of them dashed toward the village, but just a few steps into their run, a swarm of goblin assassins materialized around them, trapping the two in a tight embrace. They drew their weapons and struck fiercely at the goblin assassins. Miss. Novice village hero, badge effect. Novice villagers cannot inflict damage upon you actively. Simultaneously, other villagers found themselves ensnared by the multitude of goblin assassins as well. 7 or 8 villagers, each of them at the level of a black iron tier boss, found themselves utterly immobilized. Lu Yu leisurely approached the ancient tree spirit, which seemed to sense a threat and opened its long closed eyes. Ancient tree spirit, black iron tier boss, health, 5,000. 000 attack, 0 defense, 0, expand to view more, skills, life regeneration, healing spell, life regeneration, passive restores 1 maximum health per second. Healing spell, active restores 50 maximum health to the target, CD, 5 minutes. Chapter 44, The Village Chief Speaks. The attributes of the ancient tree spirit were laid bare, revealing no attack capabilities, no defense points, and a mere 2 skills, lacking even the signature abilities typical of a boss. From this perspective, it appeared inferior even to a shallow water crocodile. However, that glaring health total of 5 million was staggering. Coupled with the descriptions of its skills, Lu Yu felt an overwhelming sense of dread. He would need to inflict at least 50,000 damage per second to deplete the ancient tree spirit's health. And with the healing spell restoring 50 maximum health every 5 minutes, Lu Yu calculated that he had to deal a minimum of 60,000 damage per second to even marginally suppress the boss's health recovery. To vanquish the ancient tree spirit, his damage output needed to exceed 60,000 significantly. Otherwise, if he only inflicted dozens or hundreds of damage per second, that 5 million health would remain intact for hours. Lu Yu did not have that much time. Blocking the messengers from returning would only delay the village chief and the villagers' realization of the situation. Fortunately, he had previously dealt with the Blackwater giant python. Its poison effect would have the ancient tree spirit's health recovery, significantly reducing the time needed to defeat it. The effect of the badge lasted only 2 hours, and he had to eliminate the ancient tree spirit within that window. The Blackwater giant python coiled around the tree, its thick, elongated body barely encircling it. It bared its venomous fangs and sank them into the trunk of the ancient tree spirit. A system notification chimed. Your summoned beast, the Blackwater python, has inflicted 1,201 points of damage on the Millennium Tree Spirit, inducing a poison effect that causes a loss of 30 health points per second, with healing effects reduced by 50, lasting for 30 seconds. Another system notification followed. Due to special circumstances, the Millennium Tree Spirit is immune to the poison effect. Instantly, the poison mark that had just appeared above the tree spirit's head vanished, and in the next moment, its health points were fully restored. Immune to poison? This posed a dilemma. The trapped villagers nearby erupted into laughter. Our sacred tree, how could it possibly fear such trivial toxins? You wretched adventurer. You shall not harm our divine tree. Indeed, those who dare to harm the sacred tree will face its retribution. You cursed adventurer, you have attacked the tree. The village chief has surely sensed it. Once he arrives with the villagers, we shall tear you limb from limb. Lu Yu furrowed his brow, his gaze sweeping over the villagers as a tribute panels popped up before him. They were all of the human race, with no goblins in sight. Yet, like Li Er and Widow Wong, they might be concealing their true racial attributes, which would only reveal themselves in specific locations or upon being attacked. Since discovering the racial attributes of Li Er and Widow Wong, Lu Yu had paid particular attention to the inhabitants of the novice village. He was convinced that there were undoubtedly goblins, or even other foreign races, hidden among them. If they could allow Li Er and Widow Wong to infiltrate, they could certainly facilitate the entry of others as well. These individuals might appear indistinguishable from ordinary villagers, yet they secretly obstructed the enhancement of human strength. After uncovering Widow Wong's true identity, Lu Yu's perception of the old village chief began to shift. Although the old man seemed unreliable, indeed, he might very well be. His power had been sealed by the goblins, indicating that the village chief must have discovered something that posed a threat to them. Thus, Lu Yu's mission to vanquish the Millennium Tree Spirit was not solely to acquire the healing spell, but also to assist the old village chief. Lu Yu refocused his attention on the Millennium Tree spirit, which had been glaring at him with fury since the attack. Yet, it possessed no means of counterattack. It could only glare at Lu Yu in anger. With a wave of his hand, a multitude of goblins appeared around the tree spirit. Without holding back, he summoned every creature from his space, including the goblin general, thousands of goblin archers, goblin assassins, and other summoned beings, all launching an assault on the Millennium Tree spirit. In an instant, a flurry of damage values erupted from the treant. 50, 173, 302, 312, 293, 100, 47, 49, 43, 14, 17, 1, despite lacking defenses. As a level 20 black iron boss, the hidden bonuses prevented the summoned beast from inflicting full damage. Nevertheless, within just a second, the ancient treant had lost nearly 70,000 health points. At this rate, it would be vanquished within an hour. Yet, there was no trace of joy on Lu Yu's face. The words of the villagers had ignited his vigilance. The village chief could sense when the treant was under attack, and he would undoubtedly rush to rally the villagers. The novice village was not far away. If they ran at full speed, they could arrive in a mere minute or two. Although the villagers could not actively assault Lu Yu and his summoned beasts during the badge's active period, they could obstruct the attacks of the summoned creatures. To thwart them, the most effective strategy would be to ensnare them, as before with his summoned beasts. However, this would significantly diminish Lu Yu's output, making the task of defeating the treant a matter of more than just an hour. With this in mind, Lu Yu commanded all his summoned creatures to unleash their full might without reserve. The goblin archers were to unleash their armor-piercing arrows relentlessly, while the goblin assassins took turns executing their backstab skills. Simultaneously, Lu Yu and the goblin general activated the skill, Warhorn. The resulting enhancement substantially increased the damage dealt by the summoned beasts, particularly the goblin archers and assassins, nearly doubling their damage against the treant. The total damage inflicted upon the treant now soared to 100,000 per second. With this momentum, it would take merely a few minutes to slay the ancient treant. No matter how formidable an individual may be, they are ultimately susceptible when faced with overwhelming numbers. Each summoned beast inflicted minimal damage on the treant, but collectively, their combined assault became exceedingly fearsome. Lu Yu observed the treant's substantial health bar diminishing in visibly large chunks, allowing him to exhale a sigh of relief. As he gazed toward the novice village, he suddenly spotted an elderly man with white hair sprinting toward him. His agile form belied his age, resembling that of a vigorous youth instead. It was none other than the current village chief of the novice village, 12315. Following closely behind him were a dozen combat-ready villagers, weapons in hand, their faces contorted with rage, eager to flay Lu Yu alive. Further back, an even greater throng of villagers was hurrying toward the scene. Meanwhile, a system announcement reverberated throughout the entirety of the 12315 novice village. System notification: the village chief of 12,315 novice village speaks. Adventurers, first and foremost, I wish to express my gratitude for your contributions to our village. Since the slaying of the great ear rabbit, you have been steadfast in safeguarding our home, allowing us to enjoy a life of tranquility and peace. However, a threat now looms, posed by one of your own, the individual known as Qingjio. He is assaulting the sacred tree that protects our village, and should it be destroyed, our entire novice village will cease to exist. On behalf of the entire 12315 novice village, I implore you for assistance. Any individual who can vanquish Qingjio will be rewarded with 10 pieces of bronze equipment, the most formidable gear we can offer. His strength is formidable, and if you feel incapable of defeating him, you may still slay his summoned beasts, each yielding similar rewards from our village. Adventurers, the 12315 novice village once again beseeches your aid. We must eradicate this demon. Lu Yu? It turns out the demon is myself. Chapter 45. You are also a creature of the abyss, aren't you? The village chief was indeed relentless in his pursuit of the culprit. Lu Yu inwardly cursed. To eliminate him, the chief was willing to lay bare the village's resources. With such a substantial reward, bravery would surely emerge. Even if one were to perish, the loss would be but a level. Should he be slain, that would mean 10 pieces of bronze equipment. Were Lu Yu in their position, he too would gamble for victory. Even if they could not defeat him, surely they could dispatch a few summoned beasts? Most players had yet to assemble a complete set of equipment, and with the village's meager drop rates, the risk was worth taking. Lu Yu could already envision the players of 12,315 rushing towards him, their numbers surpassing even those of his summoned beasts. Yet, he had no time to dwell on them, for the chief and the combat-oriented villagers had arrived. Adventurer, previously you conspired with that old rascal to ravage our village. I spared you then out of respect for your past contributions. Little did I expect you to heed his instigation once more and attempt to destroy our sacred tree. This time, I shall not show you mercy. Yes, chief, tear him to shreds. Let his blood nourish the sacred tree. The villagers behind him roared in righteous fury. Lu Yu clicked his tongue. The spirit of the novice village was indeed fierce. He glanced at the ancient tree spirit, under the relentless assault of the summoned beasts. Its vitality was now below 50. its once vibrant leaves beginning to wither and turn yellow. Just a few more minutes, and the ancient tree spirit would be vanquished. Lu Yu stepped forward, positioning himself defiantly before the chief and the villagers. The village chief, I sense there might be a misunderstanding between us. Allow me to explain in detail. Do not attempt to delay. A villager behind the chief drew a bow, and an arrow struck Lu Yu. Miss. The chief's face exhibited confusion, swiftly followed by narrowed eyes. That old fool has actually restored the effect of the badge for you. Lu Yu shrugged. He mentioned he had once been a village chief himself. Do not bask in pride. That old man is barely holding on. And this badge's effect will not last long. The chief addressed the villagers behind him. Those struck by him will have their badge effects nullified. The villagers immediately understood and rushed towards the area where the arrows were most densely concentrated. Lu Yu had anticipated this. A multitude of goblins surged forward, encircling the villagers, rendering them immobile. These villagers were all combat professionals, robust in strength, requiring hundreds of goblins to merely hinder them. Furthermore, Lu Yu dared not allow the goblins to exert too much force, for any accidental harm to the villagers would cause the badge to lose its effect instantly. At this moment, the shallow water crocodiles, which had been creeping along the ground, became ineffective, necessitating their replacement with the goblins currently engaged in battle. However, this directly resulted in a significant decrease in damage dealt to the tree spirit, making the eradication of the tree spirit an unattainable goal in the short term. Both sides found themselves in a stalemate. Observing that the tree spirit's health points were no longer diminishing, the chief visibly relaxed. Now, all that remained was to await the expiration of the badge's effect, which would undoubtedly seal Lu Yu's fate. Lu Yu was consumed by anxiety. His concern was not merely the badge's potential failure, but the impending arrival of players. Should they join the fray, the balance would tilt instantaneously. At that point, there would be no need to wait for the badge to expire. He would have to prepare to flee. He wondered where that old chief had scurried off to. Ever since he abandoned Lu Yu in the setting sun forest, he had not been seen again. That old fool had instructed him to eliminate the tree spirit. Yet he had stealthily hidden away, reaping the benefits. Each time this crossed Lu Yu's mind, he felt an urge to suspend that old man and whip him with cold water. The chief stood across from Lu Yu, neither attacking nor leaving, simply watching him with a smile, remaining silent. His intention was clear, to keep a close watch on Lu Yu, the most unpredictable factor in this scenario. No matter how powerful the summoned beasts were, they remained merely summoned creatures. The player was the most likely to alter the course of battle. Lu Yu's heart raced with urgency. If this continued, he would inevitably be dragged to his demise. Rather than resigning to fate, it would be wiser to take a bold risk, even if it meant sacrificing the badge's effect and directly confronting the villagers. He had 2,000 summoned beasts at his disposal, along with Goblin General, Li Er, and Widow Wong, augmented by the Warhorn. It was not impossible to overpower the chief and his companions. NPCs were not wild monsters. They could not resurrect upon death. Once he dealt with them, he could reassemble a new team of summoned beasts to tackle the Millennium Tree Spirit anew. The only concern that looms over me is whether the multitude of NPCs I have slain will lead to a bounty on my head upon entering the second-tier main city. However, the restoration spell, which is essential, must be acquired. Who knows if such skills will still be available once I leave the novice village. In the recesses of Lu Yu's memory from his past life, he cannot recall a place where this skill could be learned. So let us proceed. As Lu Yu reached for the badge on his chest, a sudden realization struck him. No, while the old village chief could restore the badge's effects, the current chief could just as easily nullify them. As the incumbent village chief, his authority undoubtedly surpasses that of his predecessor. Yet, this old man remains indecisive, merely engaging in idle conversation. Given the village chief's strength, he could rival the Goblin General if he were to unleash his full power. Yet, he seems reluctant to engage. Why? His demeanor suggests he is intentionally allowing the villagers to entangle him, waiting for players to spark conflict with him. Lu Yu's mind raced, connecting the dots of recent events. From the old chief assigning him a series of quests to the transformations following the 2 slayings of the novice village boss, to now being pursued, everything seems to fit together, yet something feels amiss. In the next moment, Lu Yu's eyes widened in disbelief as he gazed at the village chief. A glint of murderous intent in his gaze. Village chief, you too are one of the abyssal races, aren't you? Chapter 46. The old village chief's dynamite adventurer. What are you talking about? What abyssal races? I cannot comprehend your words, the village chief replied, a mocking expression on his face, dismissing the accusation nonchalantly. Lu Yu narrowed his eyes, realizing his suspicions were not unfounded. Ever since the old chief had assigned him the series of quests, every step he took seemed to encounter inexplicable resistance. Before the second slaying of the shallow water crocodile king, the chief had issued a quest to defeat it under the pretext of protecting the village. The intention was to force the crocodile king into a respawn state, preventing it from entering his summoning space. Upon his second venture into the goblin nest, guards had mysteriously appeared at the entrance, barring players from entry. These 2 guards seemed less concerned with all players and more specifically targeted him. Aside from himself, who was obligated to complete the quest, no one would dare venture into the depths of the Sunset Forest. teeming with level 15 monsters. Immediately after he dispatched the goblin general, he found himself pursued, accused of threatening the village's sacred tree. Initially, he believed the old chief had been careless, leaking information. But it now appeared that the burden of blame should not rest upon him. The current village chief had always been aware of his next target, devising reasonable methods to obstruct him. Until now, he had refrained from attacking, instead waiting for players to turn against one another. Why? Once he dispels the effect of the badge and engages in combat, his racial attributes will be revealed. An outsider cannot become the village chief of a human novice village. Although Lu Yu had previously harbored suspicions about the village, the position of chief is akin to that of a local lord. The entire novice village must heed his governance. Based on Lu Yu's experiences from his past life, it seemed plausible that outsiders could find shortcuts into human society. But it was utterly inconceivable that they could ascend to a position of regional authority, even if that region were merely a humble novice village. However, given the current circumstances, he found that some of his past experiences could not be wholly trusted. Chief, although you have exhausted every means to thwart me, each of your methods appears reasonable on the surface. It is because, as chief, you are unable to employ any irregular tactics to obstruct my actions, is it not? The chief smiled silently. Lu Yu raised his hand and unleashed a spell attack. Since you fear exposing your racial attributes, I shall compel your true nature to surface. Confronted with the sudden spell attack, the chief exhibited no sign of panic. He calmly retreated a few steps, and a large miss appeared on the ground. Lu Yu was somewhat astonished. His prior strike had been calculated, deliberately aimed at a point behind the chief. To his surprise, the chief had anticipated this and evaded to a position beyond the impact zone. This only served to further confirm that the chief was indeed an outsider. Ordinary NPCs would not possess such tactical awareness. Adventurer, as the chief, I do not wish to engage in direct conflict with you. As long as you cease targeting our village's sacred tree, I can disregard all limitations and demands and promptly transport you to the level 2 main city. Given your strength, you ought to have been there long ago. Lu Yu remained unmoved. Now that he knew the chief was an outsider, he was even less inclined to leave the novice village. Spells continued to rain down upon the chief, who deftly dodged each one. His speed was remarkable. On several occasions, Lu Yu's attacks came perilously close, yet he always managed to evade at the critical moment. Lu Yu took a deep breath. Since his rebirth, this was the first time he had encountered someone capable of matching his skill, and a denizen of the abyss, no less. He was eager to engage the chief in a contest of speed versus prediction. However, this was not the moment. Players would soon arrive, and they would not believe the chief to be an outsider, nor were they aware of the existence of outsiders at all. Only by revealing the chief's racial attributes now could he ensure that the players recognized he did not belong to humanity, which might incite their curiosity about whether this was the novice village's greatest hidden quest. With a wave of his hand, hundreds of goblin archers materialized behind him. If one cannot strike you, can a multitude fail? As long as you are struck by any arrow, your racial attributes shall be laid bare. Hundreds of goblins drew their bows, unleashing a torrent of arrows towards the village chief's location. No matter how swift his movements, there was no escaping the onslaught of arrows in such a short span. A smirk played on Lu Yu's lips, relishing the prospect of his quarry's inevitable demise. Yet, in the blink of an eye, his expression froze. The village chief vanished from sight, only to materialize several dozen meters away. A flash. The universal skill of a level 40 mage. This old man was indeed at the level of a level 40 boss. Lu Yu had grossly underestimated the chief's prowess. NPCs, much like players, formally transitioned into their roles upon reaching level 10 in the secondary main city, embarking on their first class advancement to level 40. Those who complete their first class advancement not only see an enhancement in their attributes, but also acquire formidable new skills, with the flash being one such ability. Adventurer, I offer you one final opportunity. Recall your summoned beasts, and I promise to escort you to the secondary main city. A system notification appeared. The village chief has issued you a quest. Cease all attacks immediately, and recall all summoned creatures. Quest reward. Unrestricted entry into the secondary main city. Quest penalty. Village chief's favorability -100. Lu Yu disregarded the chief's quest. What did it matter that he had completed his first class advancement? There was no way he would yield to a member of a different race. The goblin archers once again knocked their arrows, but this time, Lu Yu personally guided their trajectories. The range of the flash was limited. He doubted the chief could truly anticipate the landing spots of all the arrows. At that moment, an elderly figure suddenly emerged. Young man, do not waste your time on that old fool. Eliminate the treant first. It was, indeed, the old village chief, brandishing a torch and adorned with an array of bottles and jars filled with a dark powder. It dawned on Lu Yu that without the goblin archer suppression, the treant's health had surged above half. Old man, where on earth have you been? For reasons unbeknownst to him, each encounter with the village chief ignited an inexplicable ire within Lu Yu. The chief, revealing a toothy grin, offered no explanation and swiftly ignited a cotton wick from one of the jars before hurling it at the treant. The moment the jar struck the treant, it exploded, a deafening sound reverberating in Lu Yu's ears. This was explosive material, and of considerable potency at that. The Trent's health plummeted significantly, dipping below half once more. This old man had finally come through. Chapter 47. Death to those who stand in my way. The village chief paid no heed to the Trent's health, instead focusing on igniting more jars and tossing them onto the Trent's form. These explosives appeared to be crafted from unique materials, producing fierce flames upon detonation, continuously incinerating the Trent's branches and leaves while stifling its regeneration. Ha! Young man, did you expect this? The old man still has a few tricks up his sleeve. All thanks to the crocodile skin you provided. Could crocodile skin truly be used to create gunpowder? The mere crocodile skin is far from sufficient. However, after my meticulous processing, it transforms into the finest ignition agent. Lu Yu expressed his bewilderment, yet he was profoundly astonished. The old village chief continued to converse with Lu Yu, his hands never ceasing their relentless bombardment of the tree spirit. The tree spirit, with its gnarled visage, exhibited signs of agony. It feared the searing flames far more than the goblin's arrows, for these flames seemed capable of inflicting permanent damage upon it. Lu Yu observed that the life force of the ancient tree spirit was steadily diminishing. With merely a handful of explosive canisters hurled, the tree spirit was already reduced to a critical state. At this pace, it would not survive to see the cooldown of the next healing spell. Its demise was imminent. The expression of the old village chief relaxed, as the unfolding events were more favorable than he had anticipated. Young man, do you know why it is imperative for you to utterly eradicate these four bosses? Lu Yu, witnessing the revitalized demeanor of the old village chief, retorted. Because these four bosses have sealed your power. Ah, splendid observation. You are indeed a perceptive young hero, brimming with potential. The old village chief's arrogance elicited Lu Yu's disdain. Inwardly, he scoffed. Of course, after I subdued the shallow water crocodile king, your afflictions diminished. After I captured the black giant python and the goblin general, you could even jog, surpassing my own pace. If I failed to notice that, I would truly be blind. Old man, the shallow water crocodile king should be revived by now. I have yet to collect it. The village chief waved dismissively. No matter. That crocodile and this snake serve merely as support. The crucial seals lie with the goblin general and this tree. Years ago, that old codger and widow Wong conspired to ambush me, ousting me from my position as village chief, yet they could not slay me. Instead, they sealed me with these four bosses from all directions. Now that my strength has been largely unsealed, once I incinerate this tree, I shall reclaim my rightful place and challenge that old rascal once more. The old village chief erupted in laughter, having already dispatched the majority of his explosive canisters. In that moment, Lu Yu sensed the emblem upon his chest suddenly dimming. System notification, your novice village hero badge has expired. The badge's expiration was not due to the passage of time, but rather the village chief's withdrawal of its effects. The village chief's emergence shattered the stalemate between the two factions. The ancient tree spirit was on the brink of annihilation, and the chief could no longer afford to wait for the players to engage in a feudal conflict with Lu Yu. He must act immediately to thwart their assault. The instant the badge's effect vanished, the villagers trapped among the goblins raised their weapons, unleashing chaos. A level 20 black iron boss against level 15 elite monsters was nearly a matter of 2 strikes. The sudden onslaught left Lu Yu no time to react, and in the blink of an eye, he lost over 100 goblin assassins. Even worse, the villagers have broken through the encirclement, charging into the midst of the goblin archers. Their intent is unmistakable, to eliminate anyone who dares to offend the sacred tree. Just moments ago, they witnessed their revered tree being gradually tormented and withered, yet felt utterly powerless. Now, with the effects of the insignia dissipated, they can unleash their fury. The formation of the goblin archers was instantly shattered, their rhythm of attack thrown into disarray, resulting in a significant reduction in damage dealt. The health of the treant began to decline at a slower pace, relying on the old village chief's explosives and flames to maintain a feeble assault on the treant. The village chief himself remained at a distance, observing rather than engaging directly. However, even in this chaotic situation, Lu Yu found himself overwhelmed. Earlier, in an effort to ensure that all goblin archers could strike the treant, he had arranged their positions quite densely, inadvertently providing an advantage to the villagers. The villagers surged into the goblin ranks like wolves among sheep, ruthlessly reaping goblin lives. The summoned beasts mingled with the villagers, making any counterattack perilous, as it would only inflict greater harm on Lu Yu's summoned creatures. The explosives with the old village chief were nearly depleted. At this rate, Lu Yu would have to flee before the players even arrived. Clenching his teeth, Lu Yu resolved to abandon the summoned beasts surrounding the villagers. He commanded the outer summoned creatures to retreat immediately, reorganizing their positions to continue attacking the millennia-old treant, causing its health to plummet once more. The village chief, a level 41st transformation mage, stood little chance on his own. The treant must be dealt with to break the old village chief's seal. Only by engaging that foreign entity could a turnaround be possible. This was precisely why the old village chief had urged Lu Yu to focus all his efforts on the ancient treant. The goblin general turned, his blade aimed at the villagers. Lu Yu had observed that these villagers, after both attacking and being attacked, had not undergone any change in their racial attributes. This indicated that none of them were of other races. They were all human NPCs. It was likely that they had been incited by the current village chief, believing the legend that the treant was the sacred tree, which drove them to protect it at all costs. Although he could surmise the reason, Lu Yu had no intention of holding back. In ordinary times, ignorance might excuse a lack of guilt, but in this extraordinary moment, anyone who obstructed Lu Yu would be treated as an enemy, regardless of the motivation. He could no longer concern himself with the potential repercussions of slaying human NPCs. As today, the treant must perish. With a clenched fist, the goblin general summoned a villager into the air. The blade fell repeatedly, and the suspended villager was utterly powerless to resist. After enduring several strikes, he succumbed, his head severed and his lifeless body crashing to the ground, staining the earth with blood. Villagers are neither wild monsters nor foreign beings. They cannot enter Lu Yu's summoning space, nor can they be resurrected. System notification. You have slain the villager, Zhang the Butcher, and your malevolent points have increased by 100. Lingfeng City has taken note of your actions. Lu Yu remains unfazed as the goblin general continues the massacre. In the blink of an eye, 3 more villagers fall beneath the blade, and Lu Yu's infamy escalates to 400. Chapter 48. How is this possible? System notification. You have killed multiple innocent villagers, and the Lord of Lingfeng City is exceedingly displeased with your conduct. The remaining villagers appear oblivious to the demise of their companions and do not rush to confront the goblin general. Their singular focus is to protect the sacred tree of their village, determined to prevent its complete desiccation. The true threat to the sacred tree does not lie with the goblin wielding a long knife, but with the multitude of goblin archers lurking nearby. The villagers charge once more towards the goblin archers, but this time, Lu Yu is well prepared. A horde of shallow water crocodiles and black water snakes surges forth from among the ranks of the goblin archers, blocking the villagers' path. These summoned creatures, upon encountering the villagers, are swiftly annihilated. Yet, their purpose is simply to delay the villagers. Even if they are dispatched in an instant, they serve their function. The shallow water crocodiles and black water snakes encircle the villagers, leaving no escape. The weapons in the villagers' hands shimmer with light as waves of crocodiles are reduced to mere fragments, only for more to surge forth. They refuse to grant the villagers even a single step forward. The goblin general stands at the periphery of the encirclement, waiting for the ocean embraces all to cool down, poised to seize a villager and slay them in midair. Lu Yu's malevolent points have surpassed 1,000, and his name has turned a vivid crimson. Should he be slain by a player now, his level would plummet to 0, and the items in his possession would likely be lost entirely. The player who kills him would not only incur no malevolent points, but would also receive a reward from the system. Lu Yu, however, is too preoccupied to consider these matters. All his focus is directed towards the ancient tree spirit. The number of villagers dwindles, and the life force of the ancient tree spirit has fallen below 10. If only 10 minutes, no, 5, remain, he could utterly vanquish the ancient tree spirit. At that moment, the distant sound of battle cries reaches his ears, as tens of thousands of players gather and charge forth. Leading the throng are the trio known for their prowess in the elderly home brawl. The newbie village 12315 can accommodate up to 100,000 players. Yet most among them are reluctant to confront Lu Yu's summoned beasts. They have witnessed the might of his minions, predominantly level 15 goblins, with the weakest being black water snakes of level 6 or 7. Such formidable foes necessitate teamwork to overcome. For a chance at unknown equipment rewards, the risk seems unwise. Better to grind peacefully in the wilderness. Yet, there are always those who dare to take a chance. Brothers, clear wine lies ahead. Charge. His most formidable summoned beast had already become entangled with the NPC villagers. We shall first eliminate the other summoned beasts before uniting to vanquish Qingjiao. Pay no heed to that goblin general. No matter its prowess, it cannot possibly eradicate us all at once. Lu Yu surveyed the throngs of incoming players and felt a surge of frustration. These rascals had chosen the most critical moment to create chaos. Gritting his teeth, he dispatched 3 giant goblins from the ranks, charging toward the players. This was the only force he could afford to send forth while ensuring continuous damage to the Millennium Tree Spirit. Though merely 3 giant goblins, they were sufficient to keep the players occupied for a while. Lu Yu personally commanded the 3 giant goblins, disregarding the players' ranged attacks as they roared into the crowd. Almost immediately, they leapt high into the air, crashing down upon the ground with a skillful move, Tiger's Might. The 3 giant goblins unleashed their skills simultaneously, and several unfortunate players were instantly crushed beneath them. Players within a radius of several dozen meters were shattered into fragments, sent flying back to the fountain. Other players also sustained varying degrees of injury. In a single strike, over 100 players were slain, with hundreds more gravely wounded. However, this level of loss was of little consequence to the advancing players. The giant goblins, having suffered retaliatory damage from their skills, fell into a state of stun, prompting many players to halt their advance as various attacks rained down upon them. Lu Yu refrained from commanding his other summoned beasts to provide aid. His current objective was to seize every moment to eliminate the Millennium Tree Spirit. Once the Millennium Tree Spirit was defeated, all crises would be resolved. In less than a minute, the 3 giant goblins lay lifeless vanishing from sight. After the demise of the three giant goblins, the players once again set their sights on Lu Yu. Many had begun to comprehend the current situation. Most of Qingjiu's summoned beasts were already ensnared. Even the goblin general was preoccupied with dispatching villagers to prevent them from approaching the goblin archers. While they might not be able to defeat Qingjiu, they certainly had the opportunity to eliminate a few summoned beasts. A player shouted, "Let us go kill the archers. As long as we get close, the archers will be like sheep to the slaughter." Instantly, the players followed in the wake of the three, charging toward the goblin archers. At this moment, only a few villagers remained, but the numbers of the shallow water crocodiles and black water snakes were also dwindling. Relying solely on the goblin general to hold the line and prevent the villagers from breaching the ranks of the archers. Yet, should this throng of over 10,000 players assail the goblin archers, the hard-won advantage would vanish entirely. Lu Yu gritted his teeth, casting a glance at Wang Widow and Li Er in the summoning space. He had refrained from deploying these two thus far. As the village chief remained hidden in the distance, he needed to keep a card up his sleeve to guard against a sudden attack from the chief. Moreover, even if Li Er and Widow Wang were summoned forth now, these two individuals would be utterly incapable of inflicting any area damage, rendering them powerless against the multitude of over 10,000 players. At this juncture, Lu Yu had truly exhausted all his means. Even if he were to command the goblin archers to retaliate against the players, how could a mere few hundred archers at such close proximity stand a chance against the vast throng of players? Would it truly come to naught? At that moment, an unexpected system announcement resounded. System announcement 12315. The elder of the novice village proclaims adventurers who leave the vicinity of the Millennium Tree Spirit within a radius of 500 meters in 1 minute may immediately exit the novice village and enter Lingfeng City. The announcement echoed thrice, causing a collective pause among the players who were poised to assault the goblin archers. To leave the 500-meter vicinity of the Millennium Tree Spirit essentially required them to cease their attack and depart at once. Was it really as simple as stepping out of this range to gain access to the secondary main city? Hardly anyone believed such an extraordinary stroke of luck could be true. Yet this was an announcement issued by an NPC, which theoretically should not deceive the players. A few players promptly retreated, and as they crossed the 500-meter threshold, their bodies immediately felt buoyant, transforming into beams of light soaring into the sky. This was the special effect reserved for those entering the secondary main city. Witnessing their peers ascend into the secondary main city, the remaining players were suddenly galvanized, rushing en masse away from the tree spirit. What had they been grinding monsters and leveling up for? If not to defeat the village elder and hasten their entry into the secondary main city, the novice village was merely a playground. The secondary main city was the true realm for players. The resources there far surpassed those of the humble novice village. In a flurry, the players dispersed, each becoming a streak of light as they entered Lingfeng City. Left behind were the trio of miscreants still attempting to incite players to retaliate against Lu Yu purely out of spite. Now, with everyone else gone in the blink of an eye, they found themselves at a loss. They wished to leave alongside the others but felt a pang of reluctance. Yet, did they intend to remain here and await their demise? Lu Yu had long been aware of their presence, but had been too preoccupied to address them. Now, seeing that they were the only ones remaining, he promptly commanded several goblin assassins to deal with them. The trio was of mediocre strength, yet they consistently sought to irritate Lu Yu. In a flash of dagger light, they fell to the ground, sent back to the novice village. Lu Yu turned to the elder. "Old man, if you possess such capabilities, why not simply send them away directly? You've made me lose 3 potential bosses." The elder's face turned pale. "I can only allow them to leave through quest rewards. Sending away so many at once is already beyond my limits." Lu Yu ceased further conversation, focusing entirely on commanding his summoned creatures to attack the tree spirit. The combat-capable villagers had already been slain by the goblin general, and the arriving non-combat villagers were simply powerless to halt Lu Yu's advance. At last, the tree spirit's life force dwindled to its final vestige. The old village chief merely needed to unleash a few more explosives, and with another volley from the archers, the ancient treant would surely meet its demise. He paused his assault, turning to the young man. "The final blow is yours." Only by vanquishing the treant could Lu Yu ensure it would not revive and that the seal would be entirely lifted. Lu Yu nodded, sensing that the tide of battle had turned, yet a sudden unease washed over him. Victory seemed imminent. With just one more coordinated shot from the goblin archers, the last vestige of the treant's health would be extinguished. Reflecting on the past half-hour of combat, Lu Yu recalled how he had blocked the villagers from sending word of warning, how the chief himself had rallied them to thwart his efforts, and how, just moments ago, players had joined him in this struggle. Yet throughout this ordeal, the chief had not once engaged directly. If his earlier reluctance stemmed from a desire to conceal his alien heritage, his continued distance now bore no justification. With no players left around, and the treant on the brink of destruction, the old chief's seal was poised to break. Yet, perplexingly, he remained a passive observer. What was his true intent? Did he have a hidden agenda? As the goblin archers drew their bows, hundreds of arrows soared toward the ancient treant. Lu Yu's gaze fell upon the chief in the distance, a sinister smile creeping upon his lips. An icy dread gripped Lu Yu's heart. His complexion paled. Although he could not fathom the reason behind the chief's sudden grin, he was certain that the chief awaited Lu Yu to personally deliver the fatal blow to the treant. The chief's previous actions, seemingly aimed at preserving the village's sacred tree, were but a ruse to mislead him into believing that slaying the treant would thwart his sinister plot. Yet, the chief's impediments had remained within the realm of what he and the old chief could counter. Were it not for his authority and strength as village chief, he could have easily employed more formidable means to obstruct Lu Yu. Regardless of the chief's intentions, the treant must not be slain. Lu Yu urgently commanded the goblin archers to cease their attack. However, the final volley had already been unleashed, and hundreds of arrows rained down upon the treant, inflicting tens of thousands of damage. The treant's health plummeted to zero. Its colossal form began to fracture and dissolve, ultimately transforming into a beam of light that vanished into the summoning space. System notification: you have slain the Black Iron level boss, Ancient Treant, earning 150 experience points. Ancient Treant has entered your summoning space. Concurrently, 2 pieces of equipment dropped where the treant had vanished. No skill book. Yet, before Lu Yu could collect the fallen items, a series of system notifications echoed. System notification: you have destroyed the resurrection spring of the novice village, earning 1,000,000,000 sim points. System notification: your actions have incited the wrath of the Lord of Lingfeng City, and you are now wanted throughout the city. System notification: the resurrection spring in your novice village has been destroyed. Upon death, you will be unable to respawn. Exercise caution in the game to avoid demise. System announcement: the resurrection spring in novice village number 12315 has been irreparably damaged, rendering players unable to respawn after death. Please be vigilant to avert mortality. System announcement: player Qing Jiu has reached a notoriety value of 100,000,000. Lingfeng City has issued a comprehensive wanted notice. Those who eliminate this adventurer will be rewarded with 1,000 experience points, 3 silver grade equipment, 1 guild establishment token, and 100,000 prestige. All system announcements were broadcasted thrice in succession, plunging the entire novice village, and indeed the whole server, into a brief silence. The world chat channel soon erupted. Did I hear that correctly? Qing Jiu has drained the spring of an entire novice village? If he dies, won't that mean a complete account reset? There won't even be a chance for a restart. Accounts are permanently bound to individuals. If this account cannot resurrect, even purchasing a new gaming pod 1T allow access to the game. Incredible, incredible. He hasn't even left that novice village yet, right? Ha ha ha. Where are all the Qing Jiu fans? Come out and speak. Is this really you, the mighty Qing Jiu? I thought he was up to something grand in the novice village, but it turns out he was merely destroying the spring. What a monumental event. Ha ha ha. Lu Yu stood in shock, having inadvertently destroyed the spring? How could this be? Ha ha ha. Thank you, Abyss Summoner. Were it not for you, I would not have been able to ruin the spring. The village chief, laughing heartily, teleported beside Lu Yu, wielding his staff with flourish. A fireball spell struck Lu Yu directly. Lu Yu's health plummeted to a sliver. Without a moment's hesitation, he hurriedly examined the village chief's attribute panel. Village chief, level 40 race, human health, attack, expand for more. How is this possible? Lu Yu gasped in horror. The village chief was not an abyssal entity, but a human. The elderly village chief rushed over, appearing to have fully regained his strength. Old man, I killed a treant. How did I destroy the spring? Because the Millennium Treant is intrinsically connected to the Resurrection Spring. Otherwise, why would its healing abilities be so formidable, and why would the villagers vow to protect it with their lives? As the old village chief spoke, he approached Lu Yu and plunged a dagger into his chest. Lu Yu's health bar instantly hit 0. Chapter 49. The Hidden Resurrection Spring. As Lu Yu collapsed, his body slowly vanished, and all summoned creatures returned to their summoning space. System notification: you have been slain by Old Village Chief. Level 1. Remaining notoriety value: 100,000, 180. Due to the effects of your notoriety, your level will continue to decline. System notification: you have been slain by Old Village Chief. Level 1. Remaining sin value: 100,000,170. Due to the influence of sin value, your level will continue to decline. System notification: you have been slain by Old Village Chief. Level 1. Remaining sin value: 100,000,160. Due to the influence of sin value, your level will continue to decline. System notification: your equipment, Crocodile King leather armor, has been dropped. System notification: your equipment, Whispering Wine staff, has been dropped. System notification: your item, Guild Establishment Order, has been dropped. A barrage of system notifications flooded in, and Lu Yu found himself back at square one. Not only had his level reverted to 0, but his equipment and inventory had also been thoroughly stripped away. He felt his body being lifted into the air, as if an unseen force were pulling him in a specific direction, and soon, darkness enveloped him. Moments later, he regained control over his body. Simultaneously, an unbearable stench invaded his nostrils, reminiscent of the foul odor of rural latrines. Lu Yu frowned. The smell bore an oddly familiar essence. He opened his eyes and surveyed his surroundings. Not only was the odor familiar, but the environment was as well. The dilapidated thatched hut, the tattered lounge chair, and he himself standing in a pool of murky water. Was this not the abode of the old village chief? Hadn't he destroyed the resurrection spring in the novice village? Why had he resurrected in the old village chief's thatched hut? Lu Yu glanced down at the filthy water, filled with decaying twigs and leaves, alongside unmentionable, sticky substances. WOC. He leaped out with haste. Surely that old man hadn't he actually defecated here? Lu Yu clasped his nose, summoned several goblins, and ordered them to cleanse the pool of its foul contents. Soon, a shallow layer of spring water emerged. The water emitted a faint glow and a refreshing aura. Indeed, it was a miniature resurrection spring. Don't just stand there. Hurry and save me. I'm barely holding on. The voice belonged to the old village chief. Lu Yu promptly brandished his staff, and the goblin general, Widow Wong, Li'er, the black water giant python, and a throng of goblins materialized instantly. What are you doing? This is merely my clone. Do not act recklessly. Provide me with a reasonable explanation. You were the one who just killed me. If I do not kill you, shall I allow that old man to do so? The limitations of this resurrection spring are too severe. If he kills you, you truly cannot be resurrected. As the old village chief spoke, he produced a collection of items, your equipment and possessions. Tut tut tut. Even the guild establishment order. How I wish not to return this to you. Lu Yu snorted disdainfully, accepting the items and re-equipping himself. Where is the village chief? Still engaged in battle with me. That old man's fireball truly hurts. Engaged in battle? What? Is it only you who can perform clone technique? The old village chief wore a smug expression. Why are you still standing there? Hurry and help me. Lu Yu remained unmoved. The village chief is not a member of an alien race. He is one of our own. So what if he is human? Can there be no traitors among us? The old village chief, filled with righteous indignation, pressed, are you going or not? The old man's projection expanded, prompting Lu Yu to swiftly retract his doppelganger. Remember to deal with that wretched crocodile first. The old village chief's projection transformed into a streak of crimson light and vanished. Lu Yu glanced towards the west of the village, where a colossal fireball was coalescing in the sky. He departed from the village, summoning the blackwater giant python and all the goblins to capture the crocodile king at the shallow bay, while he himself raced towards the west of the village. Between the village chief and the old village chief, Lu Yu chose to place his faith in the latter. Rather, it could be said that he had greater confidence in his own judgment. The western part of the village was devoid of the ancient tree spirit, appearing quite desolate. On the ruins of the ancient tree spirit, two old men were engaged in a fierce brawl. One hand of the village chief grasped a staff, continuously unleashing fireballs, while the other hand held aloft a massive fireball. Around him, a transparent barrier shimmered. The old village chief brandished a short sword, relentlessly assaulting the barrier. You old fool, your strength has diminished significantly since the days of yore. Have the years of being sealed been so unbearable? Even with diminished power, it suffices to deal with you. You old rascal. The short sword struck the barrier repeatedly, yielding a chorus of misses. Though the barrier trembled on the brink of collapse, it withstood the old village chief's relentless onslaught. Lu Yu observed the fireball being elevated by the village chief, which had swelled to the size of a room, continuing to expand. Even a fool could discern that the village chief was preparing a formidable spell, and judging by the time required for its incantation, its power would undoubtedly be immense. Shielded by the barrier, the old village chief was unable to disrupt the village chief's casting. Boy, think of something quickly, or I shall truly perish here today. The old village chief called out urgently upon spotting Lu Yu. Infuriated, Lu Yu retorted, if you can't manage it yourself, what can I, a level 0 player, possibly do? Nevertheless, he summoned the goblin general and commanded it to join the old village chief in attacking the barrier. At that moment, the village chief noticed Lu Yu and was taken aback, his face darkening with murderous intent. Ah, so you have indeed kept a fountain of resurrection hidden. Where have you concealed it? How could you deceive me for so many years? Humph, you old rascal, do you think you are the only one with cunning? The fountain of resurrection rightfully belongs under my stewardship as the legitimate village chief. You and those two goblins harbor delusions of discovering my hidden reservoir? Do not be so smug, old fool. The village's fountain has already been destroyed, the breach has been opened, and soon, the fountains of other novice villages will also run dry. The water you have hoarded will not last long either, in due time. The human novice villages will meet the same fate of desolation. You need not worry about that. The old village chief turned to Lu Yu and said, boy, why has that foul crocodile not yet perished? There's no need to rush. Lu Yu replied, though anxiety gnawed at his heart. The fireball in the elder's hand had ceased to swell, and even from a distance of over 100 meters, Lu Yu could still feel its intense heat. However, the crocodile king would only emerge when the number of shallow water crocodiles in the bay decreased to less than half. Lu Yu had already dispatched all his summoned beasts from the summoning space, leaving only the widow queen, Li'er, and the goblin general at his disposal. Even so, coaxing out and slaying the crocodile king would still require some time. You old fool. This annihilating flame was originally intended for you, but thanks to you, I now possess a far more enticing target, he mused. A dead abyss summoner in its cradle will surely earn me a grand reward from the general. Ha! The village chief laughed heartily as the massive fireball in his hand rapidly solidified, its color shifting from a fervent red to a deep maroon. With a sudden sweep of his hand, the blazing fireball surged towards Lu Yu. The old chief was taken aback. He had already begun to defend himself at the moment the fireball began to condense. At his current attributes, even the best outcome from such an annihilating flame would leave him severely weakened. He never anticipated that Lu Yu's arrival would prompt him to change his target of attack. If Lu Yu were struck by the annihilating flame, death would be the only outcome, and it would be one from which he could not be resurrected. But it was too late to save Lu Yu now. All he could do was shout, "Boy, run!" Lu Yu remained motionless, his expression unchanging. If the fireball were aimed at the old village chief, he might have been unable to intervene in time. However, since the fireball was directed at him, he smirked. Apologies, but not today. With a single gesture, he summoned a figure wrapped in golden light to stand before him. Chapter 50. To be brief, the fireball crashed into the air, leaving behind a large miss. The village chief's expression turned to one of disbelief, and in the next moment, he saw Li Er standing before him, instantly filled with rage. Li Er, what are you doing? Where have you and the Widow Queen been these past 2 days? Li Er's expression remained calm, his tone even. Do we need to report our actions to you? No, that's not. The village chief's demeanor faltered. He recognized Li Er as a true goblin, and he dared not offend him. Li Er continued, why did you not wait for us to act together? Did we not agree that we would only proceed when the opportunity was right? The village chief's tone gradually softened as he scrutinized Li Er's eyes, his expression suddenly shifting. He turned his gaze to Lu Yu, terror filling his eyes. You can summon true goblins. Lu Yu scratched his nose, initially intending to probe the village chief's words, but he hadn't anticipated the old man's sharpness. Realizing he could no longer feign ignorance, Lu Yu wasted no time and commanded Li Er to launch an attack. You scoundrel! The village chief let out a furious exclamation before swiftly retreating. He was acutely aware of Li Er's golden body skill. Without a critical strike specialty, he would be utterly incapable of breaching that confounded golden barrier. In a one-on-one scenario, he would have no trepidation, for Li Er, at level 20, posed no threat to him, a mage who had completed his first-class transition. However, at this moment, an elder village chief, on the verge of complete unshackling, stood beside him, with one absorbing damage and the other dealing it. The village chief comprehended his utter lack of odds. If he did not flee now, escape would soon be impossible. Humph, now you wish to run? It is too late. The elder village chief snorted. Feeling the last layer of ceiling that had confined his power dissolve moments ago, he had now fully returned to a state of level 40, fully transitioned. With a flick of his short sword, a colossal sword shadow cascaded from the heavens, aimed directly at the village chief. The skill, Skyward Slash, struck the village chief's barrier shield, which, already frail, shattered instantly, as the long sword pierced through him, revealing a staggering figure. 43,251. With a single stroke, it severed half of the village chief's health. A mage stripped of their shield resembles a simply clad beauty. A mage, stripped of their shield and confronted by a warrior, is akin to that beauty lying on a bedpost bath, slowly caressing her alabaster legs. The elder village chief afforded him no opportunity to regenerate his shield. The second Skyward Slash was already descending. The village chief hastily blinked several meters away, narrowly evading the strike. However, the next moment, he felt an unexpected lightness as he was yanked into the air by a tremendous force. Simultaneously, a long blade descended. 123. Lu Yu clicked his tongue. Despite the mere 10-level disparity, the difference between a first transition and a non-transition was easily 6 to 7 times greater. The village chief exhaled slightly. This goblin general was merely a projection, and its damage was quite limited. Were the true goblin general to descend, a casual swipe would likely spell his demise tenfold. He hurriedly seized the opportunity between the elder village chief and the goblin general's attacks to reapply a layer of shielding upon himself. Simultaneously, a flurry of ice spikes ensnared the goblin general, interrupting the all-encompassing skill. As the village chief's feet touched the ground, he promptly turned and brandished his staff, unleashing 2 searing fire lines toward Lu Yu's elder village chief. The temperature of these fire lines was exceedingly high, scorching the earth into a charred wasteland. Li Er swiftly interposed himself before Lu Yu, absorbing the fire line's damage. The elder village chief raised his left arm, conjuring an ethereal shield that absorbed the impact, emitting a crackling sound. Seizing this opportunity, the village chief, at the cost of his health, executed several quick blinks to escape. The elder village chief lowered his shield. Observing the village chief hopping about in confusion, Lu Yu approached, his mind solely focused on escape, oblivious to the illusions conjured by Widow Wang. A graceful figure gradually emerged from its stealthy concealment. The old village chief, suddenly enlightened yet incredulous, gazed at Lu Yu. Have you subdued both of them? Lu Yu shrugged nonchalantly. Something like that. Let us not linger. You strike first, and I shall deliver the final blow. The village chief nodded, extending his arms as the phantom of a colossal sword materialized. Now, the village chief bellowed, and the giant sword descended. Abruptly, the chief regained his senses, only to be met with the terrifying sight of the sword aimed at him. I distinctly fled just moments ago. The giant sword not only shattered the protective shield he had just formed, but also inflicted a significant amount of damage. The village chief was left with but a sliver of health. Before he could react further, another long blade fell, 6999. The chief's body was cleaved in two, his form collapsing to the ground, fading away without entering Lu Yu's summoning space, nor leaving behind any loot. What a pity, Lu Yu sighed, having wished to see if a traitor among the human race could be absorbed into his summoning realm. Yet, the outcome left him dissatisfied. The old village chief exhaled deeply, as if he had fulfilled a lifelong ambition. Now, old man, it's time you enlighten me about all this. Oh right. The village chief, regaining his composure, sighed softly, stroking his beard. This tale stretches back several decades, to a time when I was a spirited, dashing young man. Stop right there. Spare me the lengthy recount. Lu Yu interjected mercilessly. Alright then. It was that old scoundrel who colluded with the Goblin clan to usurp my position as village chief, sealing away my power and seizing control of the novice village, intent on thwarting human development. However, the abyss forbids conflicts among races until the racial barriers shatter, which is why they covertly increased the difficulties for you adventurers, such as concealing the novice village and requiring you to face the village chief's challenge before entering the second-tier main city. Lu Yu furrowed his brow. Is this the case for the tens of thousands of other novice villages as well? The numbering of novice villages is based on total population. There are currently around 1,000 actively operating novice villages, albeit under the control of various other races. But fear not, for I have regained control over this novice village and will assist the other old fellows. It won't be long before all novice villages return to human hands. Unfortunately, the destroyed resurrection springs cannot be restored. However, I have preserved a fragment, so adventurers may require more time to resurrect in the future. I seem to have divulged too much. No, you seem to have known far more than you should. Cough cough. Lu Yu hastily shifted the subject. Old man, can we consider my task accomplished now? Indeed. Then may I proceed to the second-tier main city? Chapter 51. Restoration Technique and Shadowless Boots. The old village chief wore a troubled expression, indicating that it might pose some difficulty. Lu Yu's demeanor darkened instantly. Old man, before your full recovery, you had the ability to transport thousands into the secondary main city. Now, with your regained control over the novice village, you cannot even send me in alone? Others might be able to, but you. What is wrong with me? Aren't you still being hunted by the city lord? Wasn't the destruction of the spring to break your seal and save the novice village? However, the city lord perceives my conflict with that old scoundrel as a mere power struggle for the village chief position, oblivious to the fact that it is, in truth, a conspiracy by an alien race. Lu Yu rolled up his sleeves, declaring, then let him know. Will you not report this to the higher authorities? There is no direct evidence, the old village chief replied, exuding a sense of helplessness. Lu Yu slapped his forehead as realization struck him. The city lord of Lingfeng. That old fossil. Among the 10 secondary main cities of all humanity, Lingfeng City was the one Lu Yu least desired to enter. In his previous life, due to that old lord's indecisiveness, he missed a significant opportunity, allowing the main forces of the Nether clan to escape when they were on the brink of annihilation. To his astonishment, the novice village 12315 also fell under the jurisdiction of Lingfeng City. Without irrefutable evidence, that old fossil would believe nothing. Although Li Er and Widow Wang were within their own summoning space, their memories regarding infiltrating the human race had been erased, and no evidence could prove that the deceased village chief had colluded with them. Did this mean that his infamy could only be washed away by gradually grinding through wild monsters? Lu Yu was not particularly concerned about his red name. He had been in that predicament before. However, the inability to enter the secondary main city was disheartening. He could not remain in the novice village indefinitely. Old man, I don't care. I am unable to enter the secondary main city because of you, so you must find a way. You cannot simply shirk your responsibility. Shirk my responsibility? As the esteemed village chief, what debt have I ever owed you? Let us not even discuss that. What about my restoration technique? The ancient tree spirit did not drop the skill book just now. Did the tree spirit not drop it? Perhaps I misremembered. No matter. I suddenly recalled that I still possess one. The old village chief maintained his composure. System notification. You have completed the old village chief's chain quest, earning the reward skill book, restoration technique, equipment, shadowless boots, 1,000 experience, and 30,000 reputation. So, the old man claimed that the ancient tree spirit could drop the restoration technique, which turns out to be a self-deception. Do you utter even a single truth? Lu Yu shot the old village chief a fierce glare and opened the interface for the two items. Restoration technique, skill description, restores a certain percentage of health to a designated single target. This is precisely what I need. Lu Yu eagerly clicked to learn, and the skill book vanished, adding another skill to his skill bar. Restoration spell. Effect. Restores a maximum of 30 health points to a selected single target. Cooldown. 1 minute cost. 200 mana proficiency. 01000. At just 1 star, it can restore 30 health. Once upgraded to 5 stars, it is likely to restore over half of the health in a single cast. Lu Yu raised his staff and cast the restoration spell on the goblin general, who had sustained damage from the villagers during the previous battle. A flash of green light enveloped the goblin general, instantly revitalizing him. Excellent. Finally acquired this skill. My time spent in the novice village was not in vain. The old man even provided a piece of equipment, which Lu Yu casually examined. Shadowless boots, silver equipment, level, 20 speed, 35 attack speed, 15 defense, 500 effect. Shadowless, enter a shadowless state. Increasing your speed by 100 and making you unselectable for 2 seconds. Cooldown, 2 minutes. Trait, familiarity, reduces the user's level requirement by 10. Description, with these boots, will you still worry about not catching up to the goddess? Upon seeing the term silver equipment, Lu Yu's eyes gleamed with excitement. He looked incredulously at the old village chief, astonished at the unexpected generosity. Old man, have you suddenly struck gold now that you've taken control of the novice village? Not really, after all. That old coot has held on to the village for so long. What wealth could there be? Weren't you just defeated by me a moment ago, Lu Yu? WOC. It turns out that not only players, but even NPCs, can receive bounty rewards for defeating themselves. And what about the 2 pieces of silver equipment and a guild establishment order? Hand them over. No. I still need to help the other old folks in the novice village. I can't go without some decent gear. And the guild establishment order? You don't need it to rescue someone, do you? The guild establishment order is of no use to me, so I only asked for an additional piece of equipment. Lu Yu WTM. Enraged, Lu Yu raised his staff. Old man, I'll take you down. Young man, you must understand the difficulties of the elderly. You need to hurry to the 2nd-tier main city. Don't let this delay you. It's already been delayed long enough. A little longer, one team matter. No. I can find a way to send you to the 2nd-tier main city. You should have been finding a way to send me there. I'll even introduce you to a summoner's mentor. Lu Yu lowered his staff. The summoner is a hidden class. And finding a mentor for a hidden class is no easy feat. Lu Yu had initially planned to settle for a mage mentor if he couldn't find one. But that would mean missing out on learning the summoner's unique skills. Unexpectedly, this old man claims to know a summoner. To have a summoner as a mentor is undoubtedly far superior for one's career development compared to that of a mage. In terms of skills alone, a mage merely learns the universal skills associated with mage classes, while a summoner has the opportunity to acquire a plethora of supportive skills that enhance their summoned beasts. Old man, you haven't deceived me, have you? Young man, when have I ever misled you? Lu Yu smirked. When have you not deceived me? The old village chief pulled a letter from his pocket. This is a professional introduction letter. I will teleport you to that person's territory. Present this letter to her, and she will surely be eager to accept you. Lu Yu took the letter and examined it closely. Indeed, it was an introduction addressed to someone named Sun Hanyu. This summoner mentor must be Sun Hanyu, apparently a female summoner. The old village chief drew a magic circle at Lu Yu's feet. I shall send you there immediately. Wait, there's something else you need to give me. What is it? The handkerchief of Widow Wang. I tossed that useless thing ages ago. Nonsense. Just a moment ago. I saw it nestled in your arms during the fight. Reluctantly, the old village chief retrieved the handkerchief from his pocket. It was once a delicate pink, but now stained with grease. Lu Yu tossed it directly to Widow Wang, who hesitated for a moment before reluctantly accepting it. Perfect. Now Widow Wang's sealing skill can finally be utilized. The old village chief prepared to activate the teleportation array once more. Old man, don't rush me. Let me think if there's anything else. Stop thinking. Let's go. The old village chief activated the teleportation, fearing that if Lu Yu lingered for another minute, he might end up stripping him bare. A blinding light flashed, and Lu Yu felt an invisible force propel him forward. Upon opening his eyes again, the surroundings had transformed completely. System prompt. You have entered the range of the 2nd-level main city. This is a neutral map, and killing will not incur a sin value. System prompt. Congratulations, you have become the 563rd player to enter the 2nd-level main city, earning an experience reward of 1. The experience bar, which had remained stagnant, finally surpassed the milestone of level 10. Lu Yu surveyed his surroundings. He found himself in a mountainous forest, with a village not far off. The sign above the village read, Gathering of Heroes. Are you playing water margin with me from a distance? Lu Yu couldn't help but scoff inwardly. However, it was evident that this was a human gathering point. Many humans in the abyss, unwilling to fully submit to the main city, established their own forces on the outskirts. In name, they belong to the main city, yet they remain largely unregulated by it. As long as they pay a certain tax to the main city periodically, the main city turns a blind eye to their existence. However, such forces are often weak, and most camps lack a resurrection spring. After the invasion of foreign tribes, Lu Yu became one of the first targets of aggression. He found himself unable to access the secondary main city and had to settle in a makeshift camp for the time being, prioritizing the formal commencement of his duties. As for the matter of his notoriety, he would devise a strategy to mitigate it in due course. The old village chief had transported himself here, undoubtedly. The summoner mentor was within this vicinity. Lu Yu made his way towards the encampment. At the entrance, 2 guards scrutinized Lu Yu's notorious red name. In such a camp, it was common for half the inhabitants to be featured on wanted posters, yet encountering a name as infamously crimson as his was unprecedented. However, The guards ultimately refrained from speaking and permitted him entry into the camp. The size of the gathering camp was comparable to that of a novice village. And in terms of architecture, it appeared even more rudimentary. Makeshift tents and thatched roof huts dotted the landscape, many of which displayed grimy signs outside. Upon closer inspection, the inscriptions became somewhat legible: potion shop, weapon store, cumplay, general goods, tavern. Only the central structures were constructed from stone and brick. Yet, Lu Yu remained cautious. Level 10 was merely the minimum requirement for entry. Within such a camp, one could encounter individuals who had already advanced to level 40 in their professions. As Lu Yu stepped into the camp, numerous gazes fell upon him. A level 10 adventurer with a notorious red name was akin to a plump fish, an easy target, drawing the attention of many. Hey, that kid looks fresh. It must be his first time in a camp like this. Allow me to guide you. A man with a sharp face approached Lu Yu. His right hand concealed behind his back, while his left extended in a seemingly gentlemanly greeting. However, in the next instant, the glint of 3 daggers flashed menacingly from behind the man. 3 goblin assassins launched a simultaneous backstab. The man emitted a muffled groan, instantly reduced to critical health, and his dagger clattered to the ground. Before he could react further, another dagger slashed towards his neck. With a thud, he collapsed, blood pooling on the ground beneath him. As Lu Yu walked past him, he remarked coolly, "When I was establishing my own camp, you were still struggling against low-level monsters." Witnessing the man being dispatched so swiftly, others who had considered making a move hesitated. Few in the gathering camp possessed the strength to eliminate a level 15 individual in such a manner, yet it was not entirely uncommon. This level of prowess alone would not deter those in their 30s. What truly instilled dread was Lu Yu's method of attack. It was evident to the discerning eye that the assassins who had just struck were not adventurers, but summoned beasts. This young man was a summoner. While a summoner might not raise eyebrows elsewhere, the presence of one in the gathering camp stirred unease among the onlookers. Was there a connection between him and the camp leader? Lu Yu casually seized an individual and inquired, "Do you know the whereabouts of Sun Hanyu?" The captured individual, initially filled with indignation, instantly paled upon hearing Lu Yu's question. How audacious! To dare to utter the name of the chieftain? Was he courting death? "I am addressing you." Lu Yu's expression darkened as he grasped the man's collar, his tone growing more forceful. In such a place, one could not afford to display even a hint of mercy. The man timidly extended a finger, directing it towards the lone stone house within the village. "The chieftain resides there." Lu Yu's expression froze momentarily. The elder had recommended a chieftain to him. Anyone capable of establishing a stronghold in such a setting was undoubtedly formidable. In his previous life, Lu Yu might have felt unperturbed, but now, as a mere level 10 Karami. No, one must always strive to think positively. The elder introducing him to a chieftain implied that this mentor not only possessed great strength, but also wielded considerable influence. While it was common to find powerful mentors, those who were both strong and influential were exceedingly rare. Following her lead would surely yield numerous advantages. Regaining his composure, he strode purposefully towards the stone house. The guards outside, upon perusing Lu Yu's letter of introduction, promptly escorted him into the hall. There, a voluptuous young woman reclined languidly on a long bench. Her alluring figure adorned in a manner that left little to the imagination. Her slender legs rested upon the armrest, and a delicate hand glided gracefully over them. This was Sun Hanyu, the professional summoner. Sun Hanyu, chieftain of the Alliance village, level 80. Suddenly, Lu Yu recalled the Chancellor, a legacy of Wei Wu, steeped in history. Sun Hanyu carelessly tossed aside the elder's letter of introduction and asked, "Was it that old fool who sent you to find me?" Lu Yu's heart eased at her words. It appeared that the elder was quite familiar with this chieftain. "The elder sent me," he replied. Sun Hanyu nodded. "Guards, seize this adventurer and take him away for castration." Chapter 53. Sun Hanyu, what on earth? Upon confirming that he was sent by the elder, she immediately ordered his castration? Was there some melodramatic twist to this tale? In her youth, the elder had been dashing and charismatic, perhaps captivating this chieftain, leading to a passionate entanglement. Yet, had the elder heartlessly abandoned her, leaving her solitary for over a decade, nurturing a desire for vengeance? The elder had boasted of his youthful exploits, but the age difference seemed rather extreme, did it not? A case of an old bull chasing after tender grass. 2 burly men approached Lu Yu. Instinctively, he considered summoning the goblin general. However, the next moment, his hand froze midair. To act against an level 80 summoner was tantamount to courting his own demise. "My esteemed lord of the stronghold, might there be some misunderstanding between us? Was it not the old village chief of the novice village, 12315, who summoned you here?" "Indeed. Then there is no misunderstanding. Rest assured, I recognize your innocence. However, I cannot help but feel that none of the men associated with him possess any virtue." Lu Yu, what more can one say? The abyss is not merely a game. It is a castration of sorts, not execution, for revival is not an option. Once the abyss descends, this body shall belong to Lu Yu, yet it is a vessel lacking critical components. It cannot contribute to the proliferation of humanity, and thus he would rather choose death. The glint of a dagger appeared behind the 2 burly men. Sun Hanyu let out a cold snort, and a delicate bat materialized in the grand hall. The moment the bat emerged, it emitted a piercing scream. Lu Yu felt a wave of dizziness wash over him, instantly reducing his health to half. A dozen stealthy goblin assassins were also caught in the wake of that shriek, their bodies stiffening, all abandoning their concealed states. Witnessing the sudden appearance of numerous summoned creatures in the hall, Sun Hanyu's expression subtly shifted, intrigue glimmering in her gaze. She had reached level 80 and completed her second job transfer, capable of summoning a maximum of 9 creatures. Yet this young man, upon his first action, commanded over a dozen. Moreover, judging by his demeanor, it seemed this was merely a commonplace feat. Should he desire, he could summon even more. The 2 guards, upon spotting the goblin assassins poised to strike, were instantly enraged and turned to deliver powerful blows. The already weakened goblin assassins were swiftly reduced to mere fragments, vanishing without a trace. Cease. The guards immediately retreated. Lu Yu exhaled in relief. It dawned upon him that those 2 guards were both level 40 warriors. What a predicament. Fortuitously, he had refrained from summoning the goblin general. Otherwise, he would have lost a valuable ally. Sun Hanyu sat up, her captivating eyes fixed upon Lu Yu. You are no ordinary summoner. Lu Yu remained silent, revealing his vocation, Abyss Summoner. Sun Hanyu narrowed her eyes slightly, a smirk gracing her lips. I wondered how that old fool dared to send you here, claiming he wanted us to interact more. It turns out you are an Abyss Summoner. Wait. Lu Yu suddenly felt he had overlooked something crucial. My lord of the stronghold. Did that letter not mention any other matters? Other matters? Sun Hanyu's delicate brows furrowed, her previously softened demeanor cooling again. Lu Yu hastily added, I merely wish to invite you to be my mentor. None mentioned, she replied. Lu Yu took a deep breath. That old fool was undoubtedly intentional. Upon hearing Lu Yu's words, Sun Hanyu's interest peaked. You wish for me to be your mentor? Lu Yu nodded. I do not accept just anyone. Lu Yu remained silent, patiently awaiting Sun Hanyu to continue speaking. Typically, those who utter such words either hold themselves in low esteem or follow up with a but. If it were the former, Sun Hanyu would not have commanded the guards to cease their actions. Moreover, Lu Yu could discern a hint of curiosity and desire deep within her gaze. However, since you were introduced by that old fellow, I shall grant you a favor and offer you an opportunity. Let me witness your most formidable summoned beast. Lu Yu rolled his eyes internally at this statement. Upon hearing that he was introduced by the village elder, she immediately sought to diminish him, yet now claimed to be offering him a chance. Is this truly a gesture of goodwill towards the elder? It is evident that it is more about my profession than anything else. Indeed, a woman's change of heart is swifter than turning a page. Thank you, Chief. Lu Yu raised his staff slightly, pondering whom to summon. First, he ruled out ordinary and elite wild monsters. Summoning such creatures would be beneath him. Perhaps he could choose between the shallow water crocodile or the black water giant python. Although both were of boss caliber, their levels were too low. The level 10 black iron boss was even inferior to a goblin. Widow Wong and Li Er were similarly unfit, being genuine goblins. It was best to summon beings that fewer individuals knew could be summoned. Since the other options were inadequate, he decided to go for broke and summon a level 30 bronze boss, which would not be considered extraordinary within the confines of a secondary main city. A colossal figure materialized in the hall. Perhaps due to Sun Hanyu possessing a similarly large summoned beast, the hall was constructed with ample height. Yet even so, the goblin general had to slightly bend to avoid smashing into the ceiling upon its emergence. The moment the goblin general appeared, Sun Hanyu sprang to her feet, a pink staff materializing in her hand. Simultaneously, 3 pink summoned beasts positioned themselves protectively in front of her. Lightning then descended from above, crashing through the ceiling and striking the goblin general's head. 133012, 125, 431, 139, 367. 3 damage numbers flashed above the goblin general's head in quick succession. What on earth is she doing? Lu Yu raised his hand and cast healing, barely restoring the goblin general's health back to 10. Fortunately, Lu Yu was adept at instant healing. Otherwise, the goblin general would have already returned to the novice village. As the lightning ceased, Sun Hanyu observed the goblin general's diminishing health bar and gradually came to comprehend the situation. Was that merely a projection of the goblin general? Indeed. What did you expect? The real goblin general? Do I possess such prestige? If I had a genuine goblin general as a summoned beast, would I seek you as a mentor? Sun Hanyu gently patted her heaving chest, watching as the summoned creatures before her vanished. She turned to Lu Yu. Why didn't you inform me sooner that this was a projection? You've gone and broken my roof. Lu Yu's sister. Did you not instruct me to summon my most formidable beast? Moreover, it appears you were the one who damaged this roof. I apologize. I shall be more cautious next time. Sun Hanyu let out a cold snort, yet her heart was tumultuous. Although it was merely a projection of a goblin general, even she, a second-tier summoner, could not subdue it. When it comes to the pinnacle figures of a race, even projections transcend the realm of ordinary beings. While Sun Hanyu might be capable of dispatching this projection in an instant, she could never hope to tame it. She cast a penetrating gaze at Lu Yu, realizing that the professions emerging from the abyss are indeed beyond mundane evaluation. Adventurer, your summoned beast is merely passable, barely meeting the requirements. I shall grant you an opportunity for employment, but you must assist me with a task. Chapter 54. Employment Task System Notification. The leader of the Unity Village, Sun Hanyu, has assigned you an employment task. Task reward, official summoner position. Task penalty, none. Do you accept? There were no details regarding the task, merely a succinct prompt. This is customary for employment tasks. The specifics will be conveyed by the minter, who will also personally assess the completion of the task. Such tasks bear no penalties for failure. If one cannot fulfill them, the worst consequence is the inability to obtain employment under this mentor. Without hesitation, Liu clicked to accept. Adventurer, I admire your courage, Sun Hanyu remarked, a hint of pride glimmering in her eyes. Liu furrowed his brow, a sense of foreboding creeping in. Given her familiarity with the old village chief, could she also be a master of deception? I need you to subdue a summoned beast for me and bring it back for trade, and I shall assist you in securing your